Chapter 756, A Reunion. Chapter 756, A Reunion. Destruction, did you see it clearly? Palace Master Mo Tao asked anxiously. They had been in a rush. He and Palace Master Ming Exen had not even cast a proper glance at the long sword Jian Wushuang was wielding. Only Palace Master Destruction saw it. The sword in the gold-armored demon god's hand was enlarged several times, but I still recognized it. I'm sure it was the Emperor's sword. Palace Master Destruction nodded again to confirm his judgment, whetting the curiosity of the ancient sect's other palace masters. For all time, the Emperor's sword was supposed to be in Jian Wushuang's hands, wasn't it? 100 years ago, Jian Wushuang had gotten caught up in a serious crisis in the Eternal Zone and never walked out of it. He had probably died long ago. As for the Emperor's sword, it had likely fallen into the hands of the demon gods. They would not be surprised at all to see a demon god carrying the Emperor's sword show up to kill them. But the gold-armored demon god they just met had not intended to attack them. Considering that he was only a one-star demon god but was carrying the Emperor's sword, they could not help but feel very skeptical about the whole thing. Guys, tell me, do you think the gold-armored demon god we met could possibly be? Palace Master Destruction broke off. The other four palace masters also fell into silence. At this precise moment, a swoosh of wind sounded, and a figure suddenly appeared before them. Who's there? Palace Master Destruction and the other four instantly swiveled around to look at the figure. When they caught a clear sight him, the palace masters were all dumbstruck. The black-robed figure, carrying a long sword on his back and wearing a wicked silver mask, was the same gold-armored demon god that had just gotten rid of Yun Fan for them. He slowly took off his wicked mask. Then his voice sounded, reverberating in the mountainous space. It's been 100 years since we last met. Palace Masters, I hope that you are all well. Jian Wushuang's voice held a trace of sorrow, whereas a smile was curling along his lips. After getting rid of Yun Fan, he had set off in the direction of Palace Master Destruction and the others. Sure enough, he had caught up with them and saw the 5 palace masters of the ancient sect assembled here. When the 5 palace masters recognized Jian Wushuang's face, they were stunned and soon overjoyed. Jian Wushuang. Is it really you? You didn't die. The 5 palace masters quickly approached him and blurted out their amazement at the same time. They were shocked, thrilled, and apparently blown away by this rather unbelievable miracle. When Jian Wushuang did not walk out of the Eternal Zone 100 years ago, almost everyone thought he was dead. The experts of the ancient sects also believed he had met his downfall. But now, here he was, standing before them unscathed. I have a tough fate. How could I die so easily? Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. This is utterly unbelievable. Jian Wushuang, how did you survive? They stepped forward and sized him up with intense curiosity. Human experts from the Firmament territory often got involved in fights against demon gods, so the demon god clan hated them bitterly. But it turned out that a total of 100 years had passed. Jian Wushuang turned out to be fine after staying 100 years in the demon god clan. I'm just lucky, Jian Wushuang explained half-heartedly. After exchanging short greetings, the 5 palace masters gradually calmed down. Jian Wushuang, quickly tell us what really happened. You didn't die 100 years ago, why didn't you get out of the Eternal Zone in time? Palace Master Destruction posed several questions in one breath. Here is my story. Jian Wushuang gave them a summarized version of what had happened 100 years ago. He told them how the disciples from the Cloud Sea Asgard and the Immortal Dynasty attacked him and how the Boundless Demon Sect dispatched an Eternal Realm expert who chased him to the outer layers. Of course, he said nothing about the ancient god clan arresting Wu Dao, Dao Mei, and Long Tao by luring them into a trap. No wonder you didn't return in time. It turns out you were being hunted by an Eternal Realm expert from the Boundless Demon Sect and were forced to flee to the inner layer. Palace Master Destruction scowled. Then he let out a snort. Humph, how ruthless the Boundless Demon Sect is. They not only send out their disciples to strike, but also dispatched an Eternal Realm Elder to turn around and assassinate you, a nobody in the skyscraping realm? The Boundless Demon Sect is truly vicious. The Boundless Demon Sect is treacherous and despicable. And the Cloud Sea Asgard and the Immortal Dynasty are not good guys, either. Palace Master Mo Tao and Palace Master Bayu echoed his comments. Thanks to my luck, I narrowly escaped from the Boundless Demon Sect expert. But due to my severe injuries, I failed to get back in time. And during the past 100 years, I stayed in the Eternal Zone. For a few special reasons, the Demon God clan did not go hard on me. In fact, they treated me fairly well, Jian Wushuang said. He merely told them it was for special reasons but did not elaborate further. Palace Master Destruction and the other Palace Masters were eloquent enough to not insist on poking into this matter. Right then, no matter what you've been through in the past 100 years, it's enough that you're still alive. When your Master Xian Yi hears about this, he will certainly be very glad, Palace Master Destruction said, beaming. 100 years ago, Palace Master Xian Yi was furious at the news of your death. In front of all the experts of various sects, he directly launched an open attack against the Cloud Sea Asgard and killed 7 of their Eternal Realm experts. It really devastated them. Palace Master Mo Tao laughed. But precisely for this incident, the Cloud Sea Asgard began to hold a grudge against our ancient sect. And this is exactly why the 3 of us were being chased just now. Really? His words stirred something in Jian Wushuang's mind. His master, Xian Yi, had slaughtered 7 Eternal Realm experts from the Cloud Sea Asgard to vent his rage when he heard of his death. Besides that, Jian Wushuang, your strength truly surprised us, Palace Master Destruction added. Mo Tao, Ming Exin, and the other Palace Masters all gazed at each other speechlessly. They smiled, but their eyes revealed a trace of terror. Especially Palace Master Destruction, Palace Master Mo Tao, and Palace Master Ming Exin. After all, they had witnessed the fierce fight between Jian Wushuang and Yun Fan with their own eyes. Jian Wushuang could turn into a gold-armored demon god, and he was thoroughly qualified to battle with Yun Fan head-on. It was evident that his strength had reached step 4 of the Eternal Realm. That was to say, his strength was much stronger than any of theirs. And Jian Wushuang was still a Divine Realm expert. For people in the Firmament territory, it was completely inconceivable that a Divine Realm expert could have a battle strength at step 4 of the Eternal Realm. They had never heard of the existence of such a formidable Divine Realm expert within the Firmament territory. Chapter 757 Traces. Chapter 757 Traces. On a nameless hill in the Tianqi Mountains, Jian Wushuang and 5 palace masters of the ancient sect were chatting. Jian Wushuang, I'm so happy to see you alive, Palace Master Destruction said. In a few days, the Eternal Zone will close again. Please leave with us before that happens. Sure. Jian Wushuang nodded. Well, what's your plan for the next couple of days? Do you want to travel with us or go by yourself? Palace Master Destruction asked another question. I still have some things to take care of. So, I may not be able to join you this time, Jian Wushuang answered. Are you going to deal with the 3 magnates? Palace Master Destruction cast a significant look at him. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. With your current strength, experts from the 3 magnates in the Tianqi Mountains are hardly a threat to you. But you still need to be careful, Palace Master Destruction advised. I know. He gave a smile. By the way, is there any chance you know who the Eternal Realm expert from the Boundless Demon Sect that hunted me down was? Jian Wushuang had not forgotten Gu Qiong, to whom he owed a lot. Gu Qiong had died for him. His death had become a thorn growing in Jian Wushuang's heart. He was absolutely determined to kill the Eternal Realm expert who had chased after him back then. Judging by his appearance, strength, and the attack style that you just described, I reckon it was Enchao. Palace Master Destruction said solemnly. Enchao? Jian Wushuang memorized this name by heart. Speaking of Enchao, the expressions of Palace Master Bayu and Vice Palace Master Ling Yu suddenly turned weird. What's the matter? Jian Wushuang looked at them. Jian Wushuang, Frankly, not long ago, when Ling Yu and I were adventuring in the Tianqi Mountains, we ran into An Chao, Palace Master Baiyu began. Really? Jian Wushuang's face altered. The place we met him is not far from here. When we saw him, he was with 3 guys, all experts from the Boundless Demon sect. One of them was Xia Yuan. Palace Master Baiyu said. Xia Yuan? Jian Wushuang repeated, staring at Palace Master Baiyu in bewilderment. Xia Yuan is extremely strong. He is at step 2 of the Eternal Realm. A few days ago, he usurped a baptismal pool and successfully used it to transform into a copper-armored demon god. When he assumes the form of a copper-armored demon god, his battle strength will reach step 3 of the Eternal Realm, Palace Master Baiyu said. An Eternal Realm expert with a battle strength at step 3 of the Eternal Realm could be counted as the strongest expert in the Firmament territory. Among the Palace Masters of the ancient sect, only Palace Master Destruction had a viable chance of putting up a fight against him. The 4 of them must be traveling as a group. I'm afraid that they are still wandering about in that area, Palace Master Baiyu added. Jian Wushuang simply took out the map of the Tianqi Mountains. Palace Master Baiyu, where did you meet them? He asked. Palace Master Baiyu quickly looked through the map and pointed a finger at a giant mountain. Here, near the Ice-Fire Mountain. Here? Jian Wushuang tilted his head a little. Thanks a lot. Jian Wushuang put the map away. He cupped his hands at Palace Master Destruction and the other 4. He was ready to leave. Jian Wushuang, remember, in 7 days, you have to hurry to the Heavenly Stone Valley and find our ancient sect's assembly place. If you miss this chance, you can only stay in the Eternal Zone for another 100 years, Palace Master Destruction yelled. Got it? Jian Wushuang shouted back. He was already flying away. On the hill, Palace Master Destruction and the other 4 were standing in a line. They watched Jian Wushuang gradually fly out of sight and then heaved a sigh. The kid has upgraded his strength to such a level in merely 100 years. Even we can't catch up with him now. I always knew he was very talented, but I never expected him to be so powerful. Destruction, over the past 100 years, you've been bragging about Feng, your personal disciple, showing him off like a star, right? You also said that in less than 1,000 years, Feng could enter the Eternal Realm, right? How about you let this disciple have a fight against Jian Wushuang and we can see who is better? Palace Master Mo Tao said jokingly. Fight? Before Palace Master Destruction breathed a puff of air into his beard, his face thoroughly bitter. Feng, whether he could break through the Eternal Realm was still unknown. Even if he did, there was no way he could be more powerful than Jian Wushuang, could he? Following Palace Master Baiyu's directions, Jian Wushuang headed for the Ice-Fire Mountain. It took him less than half a day to reach the foot of the Ice-Fire Mountain. I wonder if An Chao and his lot are still around, Jian Wushuang muttered. He began to loaf about in the vast region around the Ice-Fire Mountain. Only 2 hours later, he detected the emergency signal of the ancient god clan. He rushed there as fast as he could. However, since the source of the signal was quite far, by the time he got there, the fight was already over. The water in a baptismal pool had been taken by someone. The 2 ancient god clansmen responsible for guarding the baptismal pool were both severely injured. Thanks to the timely arrival of other clansmen, they had not been killed. Jian Wushuang inquired about the human experts who attacked them. The answers they gave were exactly what Jian Wushuang wanted to hear. According to the account of the 2 injured clansmen, 4 human experts had attacked them, one of whom transformed into a copper-armored ancient god. There was also a glum elder in their group, who was supposed to be An Chao. Seems that the 4 from the Boundless Demon sect are still around. Jian Wushuang squinted into the surroundings and muttered, there are 6 baptismal pools in the vicinity of the Ice-Fire Mountain. They've already robbed one of them, they must be biding their time to rob the rest. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. Once the Boundless Demon sect expert struck again, his opportunity would come. Jian Wushuang continued to wander around the Ice-Fire Mountain, waiting for the 4 Boundless Demon sect experts to strike again. Meanwhile, on the bank of a small nameless lake near the ice fire mountain, 4 figures were sitting together. Following Mr. Xia Yuan is great. Look, we obtained a baptismal pool without effort. And Chao, a glum black-robed elder, said with a chilling voice. Well, it's just a baptismal pool, not a big deal. A strapping shirtless man snorted. This was Xia Yuan, the most powerful among the group of 4. And Chao gave a dry smile and did not dare to say more. Xia Yuan looked around. We investigated before. There are 6 baptismal pools at the ice fire mountain. We only have 1. It's nothing to brag about. If we can obtain all 6 baptismal pools, that will be something. And our next target is this one. Chapter 758, Returning a Favor. Chapter 758, Returning a Favor. Next to a baptismal pool near the ice fire mountain in the Tianqi Mountains, 2 imposing figures were standing quietly. They kept casting nervous looks at their surroundings. In the void not far from the baptismal pool, a group of 4 people gathered together. They were from the Boundless Demon sect and led by Xia Yuan. They were overlooking the distant baptismal pool through the void. We've scouted out the baptismal pool. 2 demon gods are guarding it. Both of them are 2-star silver-armored demon gods and their battle strength rivals experts at Step 2 of the Eternal Realm. One of them, in particular, carries a longbow on his back. He is a very good archer, Xia Yuan said in a deep voice. Well, I can handle the demon god with the longbow. Kong Jing, the other demon god is yours. It'll do if you just hold him back. Can you do that? Xia Yuan asked the man standing beside him. No problem. Kong Jing nodded. Although he was only at Step 1 of the Eternal Realm, what he did best was tangle with the opponent. It was not difficult for him to hold a 2-star silver-armored demon god back. As for the 2 of you, just hurry down at your fastest speed and collect all the water in the baptismal pool. Understand? Xia Yuan turned to look at Chao and the last Eternal Realm expert. Yes. And Chao and the other guy nodded in unison. All right then, let's get started. Xia Yuan took the lead and zipped ahead of them towards the baptismal pool at an incredible speed. And Chao and the other 2 Eternal Realm experts were on his heels. A few seconds later, they were visible to the 2 clansmen from the ancient god clan. A rich aura burst out from Xia Yuan. As he advanced forward, he was also growing in size. In an instant, he turned into a copper-armored ancient god. Invasion. The 2 clansmen instantly realized what was happening. One was a hairy middle-aged man, carrying a longbow and wrapped in fur. It was Gu Yang, the same person who had saved Jian Wushuang from Chao 100 years ago. Seeing Xia Yuan and the others charging toward him, Gu Yang gave a snort and immediately transformed into a silver-armored ancient god. The longbow he usually carried on his back appeared in his hands. His huge hands drew the bow forcefully. A stream of horrible power started to converge in the longbow. The power was so formidable that even Chao and Kong Jing, who were both at Step 1 of the Eternal Realm, began to shudder involuntarily. It's him! And Chao's pupils contracted as he recognized Gu Yang. 100 years ago, Gu Yang had shot 2 arrows at him. The first one seriously wounded him. When the second one was about to hit him, he had thrown out one of his trump cards and escaped by a fluke. He knew that Gu Yang's strength was far superior to that of an ordinary 2-star silver-armored ancient god. Go to hell! A snarl sounded. Gu Yang suddenly loosened his right hand, which had been tensely drawing the bowstring. A pitch-black arrow shot out, streaking across the void like a bright shooting star. The frightening arrow appeared in front of Xia Yuan in the blink of an eye. Xia Yuan had a cold look, a sense of contempt flitted through his eyes. He was holding a giant axe in one hand. He hacked his giant axe lazily forwards and split the air in 2. Clang! With a loud clang, the arrow was smashed to pieces. What? Gu Yang looked panic-stricken. He shouted, "Hurry up, send the emergency signal. These outsiders are powerful." The other clansman standing next to Gu Yang had already registered the current situation. Without hesitation, he sent out the emergency signal. It would take some time before anyone who picked up the signal could come here. The two did not know whether they could hold it together that long. Humph! Xia Yuan snorted. He strode up to Gu Yang with his giant axe in hand and swung it at Gu Yang. Gu Yang pushed his longbow onto his back and a long black spear emerged mysteriously in his hand. He threw himself into a fierce fight with Xia Yuan. Gu Xiu's battle strength was more than enough to allow him to deal with an expert at the peak of Step 2 of the Eternal Realm, however it was still way below Xia Yuan's. Shortly after they began to fight, the outcome was clear. Xia Yuan was totally quashing Gu Yang. On the other side, Kong Jing had also successfully entangled the other clansmen. An Chao and the last Eternal Realm expert had reached the baptismal pool of demon gods. They began to extract the water using their interspatial rings. Bastard! Gu Yang felt a rush of fury flowing into his heart. When he caught sight of An Chao and the other guy frantically drying up the pool, his expression turned even darker. He broke free with all his force, drew his longbow once again and shot another arrow towards An Chao. It was a lethal attack. An Chao and the other Eternal Realm expert jumped sideways. The arrow missed its target and failed to cause any injuries. Instead, Gu Yang's missed attack offered Xia Yuan a good opportunity. You're dueling with me, but you still have time to care about the baptismal pool. You really don't know death is approaching. Xia Yuan's chilling voice sounded in Gu Yang's ears. He heard a howling wind. Axe Shadow was already in front of him. Crap! Gu Yang's expression changed drastically. Even though he was a silver-armored ancient god, he knew he would die if this powerful axe landed on his head. The axe soared towards him so fast that the moment he shot the second arrow the axe shadow was already before him, leaving him no chance to escape. Am I really going to die? Gu Yang was seized by despair. But just at this moment, whoosh! A jet of dazzling sword light suddenly appeared. It was extremely vast and menacing, just like a sword river. It zoomed in front of Gu Yang and blocked the giant axe that was roaring toward him. Bang! With a loud clash, the sword river was shattered to pieces. But in this split second, Gu Yang retreated to the other side and dodged the deadly strike. What a narrow escape! Gu Yang widened his eyes. He felt half surprised, half grateful. He saw a black-robed figure with a wicked silver mask appear next to him. Although he could not see the man's face, based on the one-star aura he was emitting, he quickly realized who it was. Thank you, Gu Yang said curtly. 100 years ago, you saved me. Today, I saved yours, so I've returned your favor, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Yeah. Gu Yang nodded slightly. Jian Wushuang had been wandering about in this area for a while and was not too far away when he heard the emergency signal. He had rushed here only to see Gu Yang in great danger. Naturally, he struck without delay. Chapter 759 Jian Wushuang? Chapter 759, Jian Wushuang. How lucky I am. I found An Chao and another 3 boundless demon sect experts. And just as I'm about to leave the Eternal Zone, it even saved me from thinking of how to return Gu Yang's favor. Jian Wushuang smiled. He did not like to owe others. Gu Yang had saved his life, so he wanted to do him a good return. An Chao! Killing intent flashed in his eyes, the only uncovered part of his body, as he cursed the name in secret. In order to kill An Chao, I have to kill Xia Yuan first. Jian Wushuang made up his mind. The bloodline power started surging inside his body. In an instant, he had transformed into a 10-meter-high gold-armored ancient god. His emperor sword also expanded to 10 meters long. He dove forward. His aura was rising ferociously, higher and higher. A gold-armored demon god. Xia Yuan was startled to see the ancient god. No wonder he could withstand my blow. He is a 1-star gold-armored demon god. However, he is not enough to threaten me. He sneered and charged toward Jian Wushuang, his giant axe in hand. The two neared each other. Mind-controlling secret skill. Jian Wushuang growled and punched at Xia Yuan. He was immediately enveloped by a strange power. Xia Yuan felt his mind struck by a sudden pain. He paused his move. A moment later, he managed to recover from the pain. He regained his senses before Jian Wushuang could destroy him. Jian Wushuang sighed in disappointment. My realm is too low. I can't overpower an expert in Step 3 of the Eternal Realm with mind-controlling secret skill yet. His skill didn't affect Xia Yuan at all except for slowing down him a little. Fine. I never expected that I could defeat him relying on this skill. He displayed his best skill, Netherworld. Xia Yuan struck out with his axe. It then became a battle of pure power. Puff! Xia Yuan coughed out a mouthful blood, and his axe almost slipped out his hand. He is in Step 4. Xia Yuan's eyes betrayed his horror. He wanted to retreat. However, Jian Wushuang did not let him leave. He came up to Xia Yuan again and launched a series of attacks. Soon, Xia Yuan was overwhelmed by sword shadows. Jian Wushuang went all out. Damn. Those damn moves. Xia Yuan cursed as he hurriedly tried to defend himself. He felt he was going to lose. Sometime later, he finally got his golden chance to escape. He quickly displayed a secret skill. However, he had only made it 100 meters when he heard a whooshing sound from one side. He turned his head only to see a black arrow flying toward him at an amazing speed. If he kept running forward, it would hit him. He had to stop. The arrow flew past him. But before he could let out a sigh of relief, Jian Wushuang had caught up with him from behind and displayed twilight. No! Xia Yuan let out a roar of despair before Jian Wushuang's sword went through his body, breaking his life core. After killing Xia Yuan, Jian Wushuang looked toward Gu Yang and gave him a thumbs up. The latter put down his long bow and looked back with a nod. The arrow had contributed to Xia Yuan's death to some extent. It was true that Jian Wushuang was more powerful than Xia Yuan, however, Xia Yuan was faster than him. If it were not for the arrow blocking him temporarily, Jian Wushuang could not have caught up with him and killed him. The other 3 boundless demon sect experts were panic-stricken by Xia Yuan's death. Run! Run as fast as you can. They started running in different directions. And Chao had kept a close eye on the battle between Jian Wushuang and Xia Yuan, thus, he was the first one to sense the danger and react. He assumed the ancient god would chase after the other 2 experts, because it would be easier than catching him. However, to his surprise, he saw the ancient god coming after him. Among the 4 boundless demon sect experts, and Chao is first place on my kill list. Jian Wushuang's killing intent was booming. He had to kill this murderer to avenge Gu Qiong. Swish! Swish! Both Jian Wushuang and Chao ran very fast, and soon, they were lost from sight. How could he be so fast? Looking back at Jian Wushuang, who was drawing nearer and nearer, and Chao turned pale. Why did he only target me? Though he was puzzled, he pulled his attention back to his feet. He displayed all his skills to speed up and became visibly faster. Jian Wushuang found he was further and further behind despite running at his full speed. He was becoming anxious. He knew if he did not display a secret skill to become quicker, he would lose his target. This guy responded so fast. He took off the moment he saw me kill Xia Yuan, leaving me no chance to display the mind-controlling secret skill. Jian Wushuang thought with a frown. The skill was powerful, but it could only produce a magical effect on its target within a certain distance. And Chao had escaped far from Jian Wushuang right away. He could not attack him with it. It seems that I have to use another skill. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He began shrinking back into a normal human being. With his will, his spiritual power began burning inside him. He was displaying the dragon blood secret skill. It was a skill that could increase one's speed by consuming his spiritual power. The cost of using such a skill was so great that Jian Wushuang would use it only in an emergency. 100 years ago when he was being pursued by Chao, he had used this skill and managed to escape into the inner layer where he was finally saved by Gu Yang. Now, the tables had turned. He was pursuing Chao. You can't escape from me, Jian Wushuang shouted. His voice echoed throughout the place. With the Dragon Blood secret skill, he could run 10 times faster than before, faster than Chao. It appeared he would catch up with Chao soon. Oh no! This can't be real. Chao was struck by horror as he sensed Jian Wushuang's aura near him. He could not help looking back and was shocked to see Jian Wushuang in human form. It's... He stared at the man running after him with wide eyes. Even though the man had his face covered behind a mask, he was very familiar with this man. He recognized his secret skill, the long sword on his back, and even the way he moved. They were exactly the same as the man he'd met 100 years ago. The only difference was that, now, he was the one being hunted. It's you. It should be you. Chao murmured. If Jian Wushuang hadn't transformed into a gold-armored ancient god before, Chao would have recognized him much earlier. Jian Wushuang. I know you're Jian Wushuang. Chao shouted back at the man running after him. There was horror and disbelief in his voice, and his words echoed throughout the void for a long time. Jian Wushuang heard him and smirked. So, you finally recognized me? You have to die all the same. Jian Wushuang sped up again. Neither one noticed that there was a gray-haired elder hidden in the forest they just passed. He was waiting there for his injuries to recover. However, the elder had spotted them and was amazed. Is that Jian Wushuang? The peerless genius of the ancient sect. Didn't he die 100 years ago? Chapter 760, The Ancient God Token. Chapter 760, The Ancient God Token. In the Tianqi Mountains, there were two figures running forward one after the other. It was Jian Wushuang and Chao. Jian Wushuang was only 100 meters from Chao. At this distance it would be less difficult for him to deal with Chao. Secret skill, mind-controlling secret skill. He displayed the skill. Chao immediately felt as if there was a sharp stinger stabbing him inside his head. Aya! He let out a scream of pain and stopped running involuntarily. Jian Wushuang closed the distance between them in an instant. Die! He shouted and struck. Chao was still in confusion from the pain. He was hit before he could even struggle. His head was chopped off and his life core was destroyed as well. He was killed on the spot. Finally, the criminal who had caused Jian Wushuang to be trapped in the Eternal Zone for 100 years was dead. Jian Wushuang stopped fighting and stood in the void silently. He looked down at Chao's body coldly. Brother Gu Qiong, I finally killed Chao for you. Jian Wushuang clenched his hand, but in his heart he was relaxed. He had been living with his hatred for Chao and his guilt for Gu Qiong's death all those years. He could finally live in peace. He smashed Chao's body into pieces. He looked around. After finding there was no one around, he left. However, not long after he left, a figure appeared where he had been standing. It was Ming Yi, a gray-haired elder from the Nine Heaven sect. Chao, the expert from the Boundless Demon sect, was killed? The elder could not believe it. And the one who killed him was Jian Wushuang, the peerless genius of the ancient sect and Xian Yi's disciple. I can't believe he is even still alive. More than that, he has grown so powerful. Chao was an ordinary expert for his level, yet he was in the eternal realm. How could he be killed without struggle? Ming Ye's eyes were open wide. The image of Jian Wushuang killing Chao kept flashing in his mind. He had hidden nearby when it happened and witnessed the entire thing. He could even recall the desperate scream Chao let out right before he died. 100 years ago, when the news that Jian Wushuang was trapped in the Eternal Zone spread, Xian Yi was extremely angry about it. It was only after killing 7 of the Cloud Sea Asgard's Eternal Realm experts and the other 2 magnates giving him 10 million divine gems as compensation that he finally stopped pursuing the matter. At that time, we all thought Jian Wushuang dead. No one dared to enrage Xian Yi again. All the sects gave him their gems no matter how unwilling they were. Now, it turns out Jian Wushuang is still alive. If the 3 magnates find out, there's no way they'll let it go. Especially the Cloud Sea Asgard. It seems there will be plenty of fun waiting for us once we get out of the Eternal Zone. With this in mind, Ming Yi left. After killing Chao, Jian Wushuang went back to the baptismal pools. Gu Yang and others who had received the signal asking for help were waiting there. Master! They saluted Jian Wushuang. Gu Yang, where are the other two men? Jian Wushuang asked. When the three boundless demon sect experts had started to flee, he had chosen to chase after An Chao. The other two experts had been left to Gu Yang and the other clansmen. Those outsiders can move so fast and they're good at defending. I shot one of them down and killed him, but the other one escaped, Gu Yang answered. You killed one of them? Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. What Gu Yang said about the outsiders was true. They were indeed good at defending and it was hard to kill them. Because he had the mind-controlling secret skill, Jian Wushuang could have killed some of the outsiders, but most of the ancient god clansmen were not fast. Few of them had managed to kill an outsider. Given that, it was good of Gu Yang to kill one. The one you killed, show me his interspatial ring, Jian Wushuang ordered. Here you are. Gu Yang handed it to him. Jian Wushuang searched carefully inside the ring. He found a detailed map of the Tianqi Mountains, and his look brightened. How lucky we are. He laughed happily. He found what he had failed to find in Xia Yuan's and in Chao's interspatial rings before. On the map, he saw a few places had been carefully marked and assumed they were the boundless demon sect's assembly sites. The map was similar to the one he had gotten from Wu Dao. Obviously, its owner had taken it with him for the same reason. It was his first time in the Tianqi Mountains. I already know the assembly sites of the Cloud Sea Asgard and Boundless Demon Sect. And now, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He took a token out from the ring and gave it back to Gu Yang. Since Gu Yang had killed the outsider all by himself, Jian Wushuang would not take the ring. Gu Yang, this is an ancient god token. Jian Wushuang handed him a token. Use it to send a message to gather all the clansmen here. I have some orders to give. Yes, master. Gu Yang nodded heavily and immediately sent out the message. Chapter 761, Assembly Sites. Chapter 761, Assembly Sites. Among those who were still adventuring in the Tianqi Mountains, only two of them held ancient god tokens. Those two were Jian Wushuang and Gu Heng. By using the token, they could quickly gather together the nearby clansmen. It was normally only used in an emergency. And at this time, Jian Wushuang used it. Immediately, many clansmen raced toward Jian Wushuang at maximum speed. In less than half a day, about 150 people were gathered in front of him, ready to receive his orders. Even Gu Heng arrived there, having left as soon as he got the signal sent out by the token. Gu Heng went up to Jian Wushuang and said, Jian Wushuang, I thought you were in danger when I received your signal. I really got a shock. On hearing these words, Jian Wushuang gave him a smile. Tell me what's going on here? Gu Heng asked. He thought that there had to be a reason for this. I've killed some outsiders during the last several days and got a map from their interspatial rings. I think some of the places marked on it should be their temporary assembly sites. Jian Wushuang explained it to them. Oh, their assembly sites? Gu Heng's eyes lit up when hearing this news, and he hurriedly continued. I knew that they have some assembly sites on this mountain, but I failed to discover them. One reason is that the mountain is so vast that there are many places that can be where their sites are located. The other reason is that those outsiders are so cunning that they will frequently change their assembly sites. That brought us a lot of trouble. Because most of the outsiders memorize the locations of the sites in their mind, I think this map must belong to those who have never been here before and are unfamiliar with the topography. Therefore, they are usually more careful than other outsiders, so it will not be easy to kill them. Besides, most of our clansmen don't know what to do with the map, only we commanders know its value. Throughout the many long years that we've been fighting the outsiders, only one time did we get a map from them. At that time, we found their assembly sites according to the map, set an ambush, and struck them hard. Therefore, Jian Wushuang, if we can find their assembly sites this time, we can set another ambush and strike them like before. After saying those words, Gu Heng looked at Jian Wushuang with sparkling eyes. Great. That's what I'm considering now, and it's the reason why I've gathered all of you here, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Then, with a flick of his hand, he took out the map, which had been combined from 2 maps into one. On the combined map, there were 13 places marked in total. 7 of them were the assembly sites of Cloud Sea Asgard, the rest of them were the assembly sites of the Boundless Demon Sect. There are so many places marked on it, Gu Heng cried out excitedly while scanning the map. If those marks really represent their assembly sites, certainly, they do. Jian Wushuang smiled. Based on his knowledge of Cloud Sea Asgard and the Boundless Demon Sect, he could tell that the assembly sites were really there. Normally, there will be 2 or 3 outsiders gathered at each assembly site. So, to prevent them from fleeing from us, we will go to those locations in groups that consist of 1 silver-armored ancient god as the leader along with 10 clansmen. And when we get there, we must hide our aura until the outsiders are all there. Then we will kill them directly. Good idea. But I think 12 groups are enough, so we can have more members in each group. As for their last assembly site, I'll deal with it by myself, Gu Heng said with a grin. By yourself? Jian Wushuang was a little surprised, but he still nodded his approval. He knew that Gu Heng was powerful enough to destroy a group of Eternal Realm experts. At that moment, he even mourned for the people in the assembly site that Gu Heng was going to visit. Having arrived at a plan, Jian Wushuang started to implement it. Among the 150 clansmen in front of him, some of them were as powerful as Eternal Realm experts at the first level, some of them were as powerful as experts at the second level, and some of them, such as Gu Yang, were even close to the experts at the third level. Jian Wushuang divided those people into 12 teams, with 12 people in each team, and had them head for the 12 assembly sites out of the 13. Gu Heng would go to last assembly site alone. Watching the clansmen march away, Jian Wushuang's eyes were filled with killing intent. Cloud Sea Asgard and Boundless Demon Sect, wait for my gift for you. As for Immortal Dynasty, I won't destroy you, but I won't let you go easily either. The Tianqi Mountains was a dangerous place for the experts from the Firmament territory, and when they encountered a stronger group of clansmen from the ancient god clan, they would choose to flee separately. In such cases, they would have to go back to their assembly sites to find their companions later, as they had no other way to connect with each other in the mountains. As a result, those assembly sites meant a lot to them. 5 days had passed since the Eternal Zone had opened. In the middle of a hill, 2 experts from the Boundless Demon Sect were hiding inside a cave. Before long, another expert of the sect arrived in the cave. Since the 3 of them had found each other, they decided to leave the hill to adventure in other places. And right then, a disaster took place. Chapter 762, The Massacre. Chapter 762, The Massacre. You 3. The 3 of them suddenly heard a voice from outside. They immediately looked up. Demon gods? At first, when they caught sight of several demon gods in front of them, they managed to remain calm. After all, it was normal for human experts to encounter demon gods in the Tianqi Mountains. However, when they saw that there were demon gods on both their left and right and even behind them, they began to panic. Oh my gosh! Why are there so many demon gods? With horrified expressions, the 3 scanned the demon gods surrounding them. The 12 demon gods started charging at those 3 from every direction. Shit! We're in trouble. Run! Even 1 life matters. The leader of the 3 shouted. They knew very well that if it was a smaller group that they had encountered, they could probably make it out alive by staying calm and displaying their skills. However, at that moment, they were facing 12 demon gods at the same time. They fell into their enemy's ambush and had no way out. So they knew it was less likely that they would survive this time. Kill them all. Following their leader, an ancient god at the top of level 2, the 12 ancient gods came slashing at those 3. The 3 of them tried their best to fight, but still, 2 of them were killed on the spot while the other one escaped heavily injured. In another remote valley lay one of the assembly sites of Cloud Sea Asgard. 2 experts of the sect were gathered there, and suddenly, they spotted a tall figure nearby. Who's there? They were alarmed as they looked toward the newcomer. It turned out to be a bald man who wore a bloodthirsty smile on his face. "It seems that I really have bad luck to find only two of you here." When they saw that man, those two changed their expressions. "A demon god?" one of them questioned in a low voice. The bald man was no other than Gu Heng himself. Without saying anything further, he dived at the two while transforming into a silver-armored ancient god. His aura shot up high, and at the same time he had a huge saber in his hand. "During the last 5 days in the Tianqi Mountains, I've killed 4 outsiders, and soon, I'll kill the 2 of you as well." He quickly moved forward as he spoke. Humph! The 2 experts had sensed Gu Heng's formidable aura, but because they were facing just one ancient god, they thought they could kill him in collaboration. But, soon after, they found out they were wrong. Gu Heng made his move. It seemed to just be a casual strike, but it killed one of the experts and badly wounded the other one. The surviving expert was frightened out of his wits and started running desperately. However, his opponent was a silver-armored ancient god, more talented than many of his companions. What was worse, this opponent had also learned some secret skills, including the mind-controlling secret skill. Therefore, the moment that Gu Heng displayed that skill, this poor guy immediately lost all his senses and was killed in a single strike. Massacres like this took place on many peaks of the Tianqi Mountains. The assembly sites of Cloud Sea Asgard and the Boundless Demon sect all suffered sudden attacks from the ancient god clan. The 2 or 3 experts in each of the sites could barely fight against 12 clansmen at a time and could only run away in desperation. Some of them even lost their lives after falling into an ambush. Although those experts had mastered excellent skills that offered them little help in fleeing from a well-prepared joint attack, only a few of them, like Wu Dao, who had a secret skill to create 18 doppelgangers, could make it out alive. No matter how fast they were, it was useless when every path was blocked. The entire Tianqi Mountains fell into a widespread massacre. Many years ago, there was an expert from the ancient god palace who got a map with the assembly sites of their opponents marked on it. During that time, the ancient god clan hit the outsiders' hearts. However, this time, the battle between the 2 sides was much fiercer. After all, Jian Wushuang's side was trying to battle 2 magnates at the same time. With each magnate having more than 15 experts in the Eternal Zone, Jian Wushuang had over 30 Eternal Realm experts in his rival side, but to the whole ancient god clan, those people were nothing to fear. Having been targeted, most of the experts from Cloud Sea Asgard and the Boundless Demon sect were killed. As time went on, the battle between the clansmen and the outsiders for the baptismal pools went on. Nevertheless, it would come to an end very soon because the Eternal Zone would only remain open for a short 10 days. 9 days passed by in the blink of an eye, and this was the last day that the zone would be open. And on that day, most of the experts of the sects would give up trying to seize the baptismal pools, go back to their assembly sites, and leave the zone together. In the Tianqi Mountains, there was a place named Heavenly Stone Valley. This valley was the last assembly site of the ancient sect. Many palace masters were gathered there. You guys are so fast. With Palace Master Bayu's arrival, all the 9 Eternal Realm experts of the sect had arrived. Among them, except for Palace Master Destruction, Palace Master Mo Tao, and Palace Master Ming Xen looking bad due to an encounter with Yun Fan, the others all looked good. Chapter 761, Assembly Sites. Chapter 761, Assembly Sites. Among those who were still adventuring in the Tianqi Mountains, only 2 of them held ancient god tokens. Those 2 were Jian Wushuang and Gu Heng. By using the token, they could quickly gather together the nearby clansmen. It was normally only used in an emergency. And at this time, Jian Wushuang used it. Immediately, many clansmen raced toward Jian Wushuang at maximum speed. In less than half a day, about 150 people were gathered in front of him, ready to receive his orders. Even Gu Heng arrived there, having left as soon as he got the signal sent out by the token. Gu Heng went up to Jian Wushuang and said, "Jian Wushuang, I thought you were in danger when I received your signal. I really got a shock." On hearing these words, Jian Wushuang gave him a smile. Tell me, what's going on here? Gu Heng asked. He thought that there had to be a reason for this. I've killed some outsiders during the last several days and got a map from their interspatial rings. I think some of the places marked on it should be their temporary assembly sites. Jian Wushuang explained it to them. Oh, their assembly sites? Gu Heng's eyes lit up when hearing this news, and he hurriedly continued. I knew that they have some assembly sites on this mountain, but I failed to discover them. One reason is that the mountain is so vast that there are many places that can be where their sites are located. The other reason is that those outsiders are so cunning that they will frequently change their assembly sites. That brought us a lot of trouble. Because most of the outsiders memorize the locations of the sites in their mind, I think this map must belong to those who have never been here before and are unfamiliar with the topography. Therefore, they are usually more careful than other outsiders, so it will not be easy to kill them. Besides, most of our clansmen don't know what to do with the map, only we commanders know its value. Throughout the many long years that we've been fighting the outsiders, only one time did we get a map from them. At that time, we found their assembly sites according to the map, set an ambush, and struck them hard. Therefore, Jian Wushuang, if we can find their assembly sites this time, we can set another ambush and strike them like before. After saying those words, Gu Heng looked at Jian Wushuang with sparkling eyes. Great. That's what I'm considering now, and it's the reason why I've gathered all of you here, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Then, with a flick of his hand, he took out the map, which had been combined from 2 maps into one. On the combined map, there were 13 places marked in total. 7 of them were the assembly sites of Cloud Sea Asgard, the rest of them were the assembly sites of the Boundless Demon Sect. There are so many places marked on it, Gu Heng cried out excitedly while scanning the map. If those marks really represent their assembly sites, certainly, they do. Jian Wushuang smiled. Based on his knowledge of Cloud Sea Asgard and the Boundless Demon Sect, he could tell that the assembly sites were really there. Normally, there will be 2 or 3 outsiders gathered at each assembly site. So, to prevent them from fleeing from us, we will go to those locations in groups that consist of 1 silver-armored ancient god as the leader along with 10 clansmen. And when we get there, we must hide our aura until the outsiders are all there. Then we will kill them directly. Good idea. But I think 12 groups are enough, so we can have more members in each group. As for their last assembly site, I'll deal with it by myself, Gu Heng said with a grin. By yourself? Jian Wushuang was a little surprised, but he still nodded his approval. He knew that Gu Heng was powerful enough to destroy a group of Eternal Realm experts. At that moment, he even mourned for the people in the assembly site that Gu Heng was going to visit. Having arrived at a plan, Jian Wushuang started to implement it. Among the 150 clansmen in front of him, some of them were as powerful as Eternal Realm experts at the first level, some of them were as powerful as experts at the second level, and some of them, such as Gu Yang, were even close to the experts at the third level. Should he just tell them that he actually had the bloodline of the ancient god clan, which was why they treated him like their own people? If he said so, the 3 magnates and other sects would seize him. After all, as a gold-armored ancient god who also had imperial bloodline, he had the highest status and rank in the clan. Those 3-star ancient god treated him with respect. As long as he was willing, he could easily set up a baptismal pool or get his hands on the essence blood of an ancient god. This was much faster than waiting for the experts of Firmament territory to enter the Tianqi Mountains every 100 years and fight for them. Fine. If you really can't think of other excuses, make do with this. Palace Master Destruction smiled. The Eternal Zone is so big, it's actually possible that you found a place to hide for 100 years without running into any demon god. Besides this, there is one more thing I must tell you. 100 years ago, Palace Master Xian Yi was enraged by the news that you were killed inside the Eternal Zone. He killed 7 Eternal Realm experts of the Cloud Sea Asgard and forced another 2 magnates, on top of numerous sects, to give out their divine gems to take revenge for you. After all, it was about your death during that time. Besides, It was proven that the Cloud Sea Asgard did send their disciples out to kill you. Since Xian Yi was so powerful, the three magnates as well as the other top sects could only suck it up and do as told. Thus, if they find out that you are still alive, they will not let this 100-year-old matter down easily. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang could not help but gave a bitter laugh. He never thought that his master would do so many things to take revenge for him. But after all, this whole thing was started by Xian Yi. He is very capable and will have a solution for it. You don't have to worry too much about it. After we get out of Eternal Zone, you can explain the matter to Xian Yi and get him to tidy things up, said Palace Master Destruction. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, but deep down, he could not help being worried. He knew that the others would think there had to be a secret behind him surviving such a long time in Eternal Zone. The three magnates and top sects would be desperate to get the secret out of him. The world outside was now a lion's den to him. Desperate times call for desperate measures. No matter what, since I have to leave this place sooner or later, I can't hide from it forever. I can only face it straight on. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and his gaze flickered. Let's go. After Palace Master Destruction gave his orders, the other masters, as well as Jian Wushuang, gradually stepped into the wormhole in front of them. Finally, Jian Wushuang was leaving this place that he had been staying in for a whole 100 years. He was leaving the ancient god clan. Perhaps he would return someday, but it was for sure that it would be many years later. Chapter 764 Jian Wushuang Returns. Chapter 764 Jian Wushuang Returns. 10 days had passed, and all the sects started leaving the Eternal Zone one after another. The ancient gods who had been adventuring in the Tianqi Mountains all gathered together, ready to go back to their tribes. Gu Heng, the leader of those gods, had a grave expression on his face at this moment. Where is Jian Wushuang? Where is he? He shouted at the clansmen. Before they left, Elder Yi had told him to keep Jian Wushuang safe, as he had a very special position in the clan. At the moment, other than those who were killed by outsiders, all those clansmen who went to the Tianqi Mountains were all gathered here. However, there was no trace of Jian Wushuang. Could Jian Wushuang have already died in the hands of the outsiders? Sir, Gu Yang went up to Gu Heng and passed him a token, saying, Jian Wushuang told me to give this token to you not long ago. Token? Gu Heng's face darkened. He took it and started reading the information on it. He left? He went to the human territory? He's going to return in a few thousand years? Gu Heng's eyes were wide opened. Soon later, he began laughing bitterly. Jian Wushuang might have left in an admirable way, but he was going to have a hard time explaining to Elder Yi with just this token. In the dense ancient forest, outside the Eternal Zone, experts and disciples of the sects in the Firmament territory were gathering here, in this place above the void, after exiting the wormhole. Within half a day, most of them had arrived. Among those people, the experts of Cloud Sea Asgard and Boundless Demon sect all looked grim. How many people did Cloud Sea Asgard and Boundless Demon sect lose this time thanks to him? I remember that there were a total of 15 experts from the Cloud Sea Asgard entering the Eternal Zone, but now only 7 of them made it out alive. The Boundless Demon sect is no better. It lost half of its people there. TSKSK, I really want to know what happened to the 2 magnates there. The surrounding experts from the top sects were surprised, although they did show it. Each sect had their own losses in this trip to the Eternal Zone. Among them, the Cloud Sea Asgard and Boundless Demon sect had suffered the greatest losses. Half of their people died inside the Eternal Zone. As for the Immortal Dynasty, its situation was not as miserable, but it still lost 4 experts. 2 of them were killed by Jian Wushuang. Bastard! The demon gods found out about our assembly site on the Tianqi Mountains. The great elder of the Cloud Sea Asgard, Yun Fan, wore a grim expression, and his eyes glistened with anger. His sect and the Boundless Demon sect all suffered a great loss. However, they could only admit that they had bad luck. It never occurred to them to blame others, much less Jian Wushuang. Just then, a blinding light shone from the wormhole. Following which, a group of people came out one after another. Are they from the ancient sect? I wonder if they lost anyone inside. The waiting experts immediately turned towards the men from the ancient sect. When they saw that all 9 palace masters of the sect survived, they were surprised, although they did not show it. Obviously, the ancient sect did not suffer any loss in the Eternal Zone. Soon, the experts noticed the black-robed youth standing beside Palace Master Destruction. He was carrying a long sword. Judging from the youth's aura, they could tell that he was just a Divine Realm expert. A Divine Realm expert. Who is this guy? He is. Everyone's eyes were fixated on the youth. The experts from the 3 magnates, as well as their disciples, all stared at the youth. Their gaze turned from confusion to suspicion and then to shock. Finally, they were all horror-struck. Jian Wushuang. Someone blurted out in shock. Instantly, this fact registered in everyone's brain like a thunderbolt being struck across a cloudless sky. It's him, Jian Wushuang. He is the one who shook the whole firmament territory 100 years ago and was taken in by Xian Yi as his own personal disciple. Isn't he supposed to be dead? How is this possible? How is he possibly not dead? This is impossible. Everyone was stunned. Even those experienced Eternal Realm experts could not believe their eyes when they saw Jian Wushuang standing in front of them again. Jian Wushuang, who was supposed to have died 100 years ago, was now appearing in front of them in one piece. Jian Wushuang, he isn't dead. The experts from the 3 magnates were dumbfounded. The only one who was not surprised at Jian Wushuang's appearance was white-haired Ming Yi, an elder from the 9 Heaven sect. He had witnessed how Jian Wushuang killed En Chao in the Eternal Zone. Hence, he was naturally not surprised at his appearance. Just when everyone was still in a state of shock, Jian Wushuang looked around and took in a deep breath. A comfortable smile widened on his face. After 100 years, I'm finally out. Jian Wushuang could not help but told himself that in his heart. For him, it was really a long time. The clansmen of the Ancient God clan had treated him well. He also had the bloodline of ancient gods. However, he was born in the human territory after all. That was where he was rooted in. All these people, Jian Wushuang glanced at each and every single one of them, not missing any of their expressions. Looks like they're all surprised. Jian Wushuang gave a cold smile. Just ignore them. Let's go. Palace Master Destruction. Palace Master Destruction spoke in a low voice. Following which, the many palace masters of the ancient sect followed Jian Wushuang back to the sect. However, just as they were about to start off. Wait! The low voice echoed throughout the place. Following which, a figure came to stand in their way. It was an old man with a youthful face. The moment he appeared, his aura suppressed all the others. Jian Wushuang, where are you hurrying to? The elder asked in a casual manner. However, his sharp eyes targeted Jian Wushuang. Chapter 765. No consequence will fall on you. Chapter 765. No consequence will fall on you. Yun Fan, what do you want? The crowd stood by Jian Wushuang, staring deadly at the elder, Yun Fan. Nothing. I'm just really curious how this boy, Jian Wushuang, managed to walk out of the Eternal Zone alive after staying inside for 100 years. What a strange thing, isn't it? Yun Fan answered with a smile. Strange thing. Indeed. The firmament territory had been in the Eternal Zone for a long time. During those years, the experts from the firmament territory would enter the Eternal Zone once every 100 years. After all their expeditions, they have already affirmed a fact. Anyone would die if they did not leave within 10 days. However, Jian Wushuang proved this wrong. This boy is the only one so far who has made it out alive after 100 years in the Eternal Zone. There must be something behind this. The surrounding experts' gaze became frenzied as they looked at Jian Wushuang. The Eternal Zone was a land of both opportunities and dangers. The Ancient God clan, which lived in the Eternal Zone, was very unique. Although the experts from the Firmament Territory had adventured into this land countless times, they only managed to attain a small fraction of the opportunities. However, they were still kept clear of the real big opportunity, the real big secret that was hidden in the Eternal Zone. They had been dying to attain the real big opportunity. However, none of them was powerful enough to battle the ancient god clan. There were once 2 Dao masters from the Firmament Territory who also wanted to venture into the deepest parts of Eternal Zone, where the demon gods' so-called tribes were located at. However, once they entered the Eternal Zone, they immediately encountered some of the 3-star ancient gods. Their adventure ended with them running away in a hurry. For so many years, they knew that the Firmament Territory could be a huge treasure on its own, but it was one that they would never attain. All that they could get were the insignificant baptismal pools and essence blood of demon god. Seeing that Jian Wushuang made it out alive, they saw hope. Jian Wushuang noticed the fervent gazes on him, and he was not surprised. He poured out the words he prepared in advance. 100 years ago, I ran into danger in the Eternal Zone and did not get out in time. Later, I found a secret place in the zone and hid in it the whole time. I didn't come out even once until several days ago, and I was lucky to meet our palace masters again and manage to leave the zone with them. Hiding for 100 years? Yun Fan raised his eyebrows, saying, "You had been hiding in the Eternal Zone for 100 years but yet not one demon god found you? And you even managed to find the people from ancient sect? Well, it seems that you are really lucky." Despite his words, Yun Fan was not convinced. Apart from him, none of the surrounding experts believed Jian Wushuang's words. Hiding in the Eternal Zone for 100 years. If it was possible for someone to hide in the Eternal Zone for 100 years without being found, all those who had failed to leave the zone in the past should have been able to as well. Elder Yun Fan, is there anything else? Jian Wushuang looked at the elder with calm eyes. Yes, one more. The elder replied. 100 years ago, your master, Xian Yi, killed 7 Eternal Realm experts of our sect to take revenge for your death. Back then, everyone thought that you were dead. Considering that our disciples did attack you first in the Eternal Zone, we did not fight back against him at that time, nor did we continue to harp onto the matter. But now, you turn out to be alive. Then we should talk about how you can make up for our loss. The elder's voice became colder as he talked. Make up for your loss? How do you want me to do that? Jian Wushuang asked with a smile. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I just want you to stay at our sect as a guest for a period of time, Yun Fan said. A guest? Jian Wushuang looked nonchalant, but he knew it was a trick. Jian Wushuang knew that he meant to keep him as a prisoner rather than a guest. While doing so, the Cloud Sea Asgard would then think of ways to learn about the secrets of the Eternal Zone and ancient god clan from him. What if I say no? Jian Wushuang spoke. If you say so, then don't blame me for being merciless. Yun Fan's expression turned cold suddenly. As those words escaped his mouth, he held up his pale hand and pointed his index finger at Jian Wushuang. Immediately, a fully formed substantial wild wind of spiritual power blew violently towards Jian Wushuang. Seeing that, Palace Master Destruction shouted loudly. Yun Fan, what are you doing? Don't forget that Jian Wushuang is Xian Yi's personal disciple. Humph. Yun Fan snorted and ignored Palace Master Destruction's words. The wild wind did not die down. Instead, its momentum grew even stronger and enveloped Jian Wushuang. Whoosh! The strong wind raged in the sky. Soon, it formed a black light cocoon and enveloped Jian Wushuang inside it. He stood still in the light cocoon and watched it envelop him completely. However, Jian Wushuang did not even struggle. At this time, he took out a messaging slip and sent a message to Xian Yi. Master, I'm back. The message was simple and straight to the point. I see. It's good to have you back. Xian Yi replied to him immediately in a calm tone. Jian Wushuang could not help but feel that something was not right. It seems that Master has expected my return. Did he know that I didn't die? Jian Wushuang shook his head and did not think about it further. He sent another message to Xian Yi. Master, though I made it out of the eternal zone alive, I'm in trouble now. Before he could finish his words, Xianyi interrupted him, saying, The three magnates have always wanted to kill you. Now that you are the first one to come out of the eternal zone alive, it is normal that they would cause trouble for you. It would be strange if they do not make things difficult for you. Xianyi seemed to have long expected Jian Wushuang's current situation. Kid, you've been in the eternal zone for 100 years, your strength must have increased quite a lot, right? Xianyi asked suddenly. Jian Wushuang nodded repeatedly and asked, Master, why are you asking me this? There was a silence before Xianyi spoke again. As your master, I know what you're thinking about. What I'm trying to say is, do what you want to do with no hesitation. With me here, no consequence will fall on you. Chapter 766, I Give You a Chance. Chapter 766, I Give You a Chance. Do what you want to do with no hesitation. No consequence will fall. Xianyi's words were little, but Jian Wushuang could hear his confidence. It sounded as if everything was in Xianyi's control. With the addition of Xianyi's mysteriousness and overbearingness, those words gave Jian Wushuang an enormous boost in confidence. 100 years ago, the seeds of the grudge between him and the three magnates had been sown when they attacked him. Until now, Jian Wushuang had always been trying to take revenge against the three magnates. However, considering their enormous strength and long history in the firmament territory, Jian Wushuang faced many difficulties. During the 10 days in the Tianqi Mountains, he had to wear a mask and conceal his identity when attacking the experts from the three magnates. He did not dare to take revenge explicitly, for fear that his master and the ancient sect would be involved in this matter. He clearly wanted to annihilate the three magnates, but he could not voice it out due to the many concerns. Now things had changed. His master's words dispelled all his worries and he now felt supported. Master, I know what to do now. Jian Wushuang nodded. Okay, Xianyi responded and ended the conversation. Jian Wushuang was still in the light cocoon. However, he now had a grin on his face. This grin was as cold as a sharp blade. Emperor's sword appeared in his hand. All those years of training, near-death failures as well as bloody lessons again and again. I had no choice but to hide my talents and skills. But today, with my master's support, I'll display all my abilities without restraint, Jian Wushuang thought to himself as his gaze shone fervently. He was a sword cultivator. A peerless swordsman. He was good at using the long sword and immersed himself in sword principle, which he loved. It was a principle that could annihilate, destroy, and tear apart everything. Thus, as a peerless sword cultivator, Jian Wushuang had to be extraordinary. Jian Wushuang's killing intent was blooming while he remained in the light cocoon. His enthusiasm had died down after all these years of sufferings and miseries. There was no other choice. He had just entered the eternal world. His strength was not strong enough. He had to endure most of the time. But right now, he could feel his enthusiasm boiling in his blood. Jian Wushuang even felt that all the blood in his body were boiling. Today, nothing can stand in my way. His loud voice echoed through the skies. It was like a thunder that stayed in the skies for a long time. On the void, after trapping Jian Wushuang in the light cocoon, Yun Fan decided to take him to the Cloud Sea Asgard directly. Palace Master Destruction and the others were very anxious about Jian Wushuang's situation. They tried to intervene but were stopped by the people from Cloud Sea Asgard. Yun Fan stared at the light cocoon flying towards him. A sinister grin spread across his face. Though we suffered a great loss in Eternal Zone this time, bringing Jian Wushuang back will be enough to make up for it. Jian Wushuang, Yun Fan was in a fever of excitement. He was not excited over Jian Wushuang. He was thrilled at the thought of uncovering the big secrets of the Eternal Zone and getting the opportunities. Soon he could get them from Jian Wushuang. As for Jian Wushuang's teacher, Xianyi, the Cloud Sea Asgard was indeed fearful of Xianyi. However, it was not to the extent of being frightened. The secrets of Jian Wushuang were enough to make Cloud Sea Asgard go crazy. They could not bother about Xian Yi at this point in time. Come here. Yun Fan waved his hands slightly at the cocoon. Just as he was going to reach it. Whoosh! A bright and dazzling sword light flashed out of the cocoon, blinding everyone. The sword light had an incomparable sharpness and an unexplainable edge. It had shone suddenly from the light cocoon and reached everywhere after the sword struck out and cut the cocoon open. The accompanying ear-piercing sounds it made while doing so were like a peerless swordsman's roars in rage. Instantly, everyone was in distress and started running around. What's going on? Yun Fan was startled. He was just trying to entrap Jian Wushuang, but what was his identity? He was the great elder of the Cloud Sea Asgard, as well as an expert in Step 4 of the Eternal Realm. Hence, he thought that there was no way a Divine Realm expert could break free from his trap, not even those experts in Step 1 or 2 of the realm. However, Jian Wushuang made it. After breaking open the cocoon, Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the crowd again. At this moment, his black robe was billowing even without the wind blowing. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed and he had a cold face while holding a sword in hand. Hiss! Faint sword essences emitted from his body. He looked all the same as before, but the crowd could tell, with just one glance, that he was now completely different. In the past, he used to keep all things to himself. No one knew his strengths. Now, he was like an unsheathed sword revealing its shining edge. This feeling. Looking at Jian Wushuang, the experts of the sects frowned. They sensed a special aura coming from Jian Wushuang, spread by his sword essence. However, rather than calling it his aura, it was more of his temperament. Yes, that was it. Jian Wushuang's temperament had changed completely. Now, Jian Wushuang was just standing there, not moving. However, he made others feel as if he was an extreme precious sword that could destroy everything in the world. Nothing could stand in his way. Invincible. Unstoppable. This was the temperament that he was showing. The temperament of the sword principle. Yun Fan. Jian Wushuang finally spoke, and his voice seemed to pass through everything before it rang in everyone's ears. Didn't you said that you want to invite me to the Cloud Sea Asgard to be your guest? I will make your wish come true. Everyone present became quiet. Countless gazes were fixed on Jian Wushuang as people listened to him. Make Yun Fan's wish come true. The experts were puzzled at Jian Wushuang's words. In the next moment, Jian Wushuang threw the Emperor's sword in his hand. The sword emitted a chilly sword edge as it headed straight towards Yun Fan. As long as you can take my sword away from me, I'll go with you. Jian Wushuang's loud voice was filled with endless sharpness. It echoed through the vast place. It rose up high into the sky with the sword essence and alarmed all the creatures there. Chapter 767 Jian Wushuang vs. Yun Fan. Chapter 767 Jian Wushuang vs. Yun Fan. The vast place had now quietened down. The experts and disciples were all looking at Jian Wushuang, who was standing in the void, in great fear. They could not help it. What Jian Wushuang said really terrified them. How could a divine realm expert dare to challenge the great elder of the Cloud Sea Asgard? After all, Yun Fan was at Step 4 of the Eternal Realm. Out of all the people there, who could be his match? Even Yun Fan himself looked at Jian Wushuang with a startled look. But in the next moment, he started laughing hysterically. Ha, kid, are you sure you're not sleep-talking? You're just a divine realm expert. Winning you is not even glorious. You know what, I once got a puppet fighter by chance and never used it before. Now, I'll have it fight with you to test its power. After speaking, Yun Fan waved his hand, and a puppet fighter immediately appeared before everyone's eyes. The puppet was covered with purple gems and only had one mouth and a vertical eye on its head. After its appearance, its body began to expand at an alarming speed. In an instant, it grew to over 100 meters tall. It gave off a terrifying aura. What kind of a puppet fighter is this? It's so big, too big. Oh my God! A puppet fighter over 100 meters tall. Its aura is too strong, It's already so far beyond step 1 of the Eternal Realm, I'm guessing it's nearing step 2. The experts of the sects were all in shock. Jian Wushuang's expression remained cold. He lifted his head and looked at majestic puppet fighter covered in purple gems. In the next instant his body moved suddenly. He was so fast, it looked as if he was teleporting. His figure traveled through the void. At the same time, he struck out his Emperor sword. Whoosh! The sword light started to shine, and in the next moment, the crowd saw that Jian Wushuang's figure had already moved to behind the puppet fighter. The puppet fighter's aura was still overwhelming, but the crowd saw a clear sword scar on its waist. This scar broke its waist completely and its body was cut into 2. How is this possible? Yun Fan widened his eyes at his puppet fighter. Obviously, all that just happened were totally beyond his expectations. Before he had enough time to be in shock, he heard a whooshing sound. A figure appeared out of nowhere in front of him. Secret skill Twilight. Jian Wushuang's low voice rang in Yun Fan's ears. By the time he realized it, he saw a cold sword light lighting up in front of his mid-brows. It was less than half a meter away from him. How fast? Yun Fan instantly narrowed his eyes. He was too close to the blade and had no time to fetch his own weapon. He could only shake his long sleeves violently, causing a strong wind to surge and form into a powerful dragon. The dragon bellowed and charged towards Jian Wushuang with its mouth wide open. Bump! Yun Fan turned into a meteorite, smashing into the ground ferociously. When he reached the ground, he created a huge pit that was 10 meters deep. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang immediately dived toward the pit. At the bottom of the pit, Yun Fan rose up to his feet and took out a black stone staff. However, he did not manage to get out of the pit in time. Secret skill, Netherworld. Immediately, a net of terrifying sword lights covered the pit and fell mercilessly into the pit that Yun Fan was in. Boom! The earth began shaking. Some of the sword light hit the ground and created huge cracks on the floor instantly. These cracks then branched out in all directions. Eventually, the whole ground, which covered a few kilometers, were filled with cracks. Countless blocks and rocks were sent flying in all directions like shooting stars. The crowd in firmament territory were lucky to be standing above the void and not get hit. Bang! With another loud sound, a certain part of the cracked ground sunk in. Following which, 2 figures were seen, in the cloud of ashes, running into each other at the same time. Die! Jian Wushuang's eyes were burning with killing intent and his sword essence seemed to be able to cut the sky open. This shocking sword essence of his was then split into innumerable sword lights which shot towards Yun Fan. Yun Fan's aura rose tremendously at this moment. He spun the stone staff so fast as if it was causing the surrounding air to form a wheel of fast wind. At the same time, air flows were coming out from his body. They formed a stiff air shield to block off the sword light coming towards him. While he was busy defending himself, Jian Wushuang had approached Yun Fan and was less than 2 meters away from him. With the 2 fighters so close to each other, they had to rely on their near-distance offensive ability to win. Jian Wushuang used to cultivate earnestly during his long years in the underground palace of the 8th tribe. His offensive ability had increased tremendously since then. Jian Wushuang's terrifying near-distance offensive ability was in full launch. He had turned into an unbeatable sharp sword. The Emperor sword that he was holding onto was a cold and dark sword edge. His body had turned into the sword's blade and his every move was full of sword light. Bang, 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 bang. Loud banging sounds rang through the skies. In just a short moment, Jian Wushuang and Yun Fan had exchanged over 100 moves. Each of their exchanges produced a rigorous wave that awed all the onlookers. Get lost! Jian Wushuang's roar echoed again in the skies. After which, his thighs were seen kicking hard against Yun Fan's back, as if they were a sword blade of a long sword. The terrifying strength caused Yun Fan to fall onto the disheveled ground once again. Bump! Another huge pit appeared. Seeing this, the onlookers were all shocked. Just several moments before, they had thought that Jian Wushuang was just joking when he challenged Yun Fan. However, with one strike, Jian Wushuang cut Yun Fan's puppet fighter into 2 parts. After that, he went up to Yun Fan directly. In just a few moves, he caused Yun Fan to smash into the ground below. Twice. What kind of strength was that? After knocking Yun Fan into the pit again, Jian Wushuang finally ceased his attacks. He gazed down at the pit with a stolid face. Suddenly, a thundering roar sounded from the pit. Soon, the crowd was blinded by silver light, following which, a huge figure rose up and appeared before everyone. It was a silver-armored ancient god. Yun Fan had transformed into an ancient god. Chapter 768, The Gold-Armored Ancient God Jian Wushuang. Chapter 768, The Gold-Armored Ancient God Jian Wushuang. Yun Fan had transformed into a demon god. He's the great elder of Cloud Sea Asgard. Was it necessary? He is just battling a divine realm expert. This Jian Wushuang. The onlookers had already scrambled far away from the fight. All of them had an odd expression as they watched the battle. Yun Fan, who had transformed into a 5-meter silver-armored ancient god, stared deadly at Jian Wushuang with his silver-light eyes. He had never thought that Jian Wushuang would push him to this stage. But after the fight just now, he understood that while Jian Wushuang was just a divine realm expert, his strength was strangely extraordinary. "Kid, you should be proud of yourself for pushing me to this point, but you should stop now," Yun Fan growled in a low voice. "Stop now?" Jian Wushuang had a cold impression, even as he saw Yun Fan turn into an ancient god. "Well, I don't think so." Jian Wushuang's voice was harsh and cold. As his voice fell, he activated his bloodline power instantly. Rumble, a dark golden light shone in Jian Wushuang's gaze. His body then started enlarging at an alarming speed. In just a short moment, he transformed into a 15 meters gold-armored ancient god. Everyone present was startled by the scene. What's that? The gold-armored demon god. Oh my god. It's so huge. I've never seen a demon god this big before. The whole place was in an uproar mixed with some angry voices. It's him. A purple-haired man from the Boundless Demons sect cried out in horror. His eyes were widened and he had a fearful expression. His companions immediately looked towards him and asked, "Kong Jing, you've seen him before?" "Yes, in the Tianqi Mountains." "He is the man who killed Xia Yuan," Kong Jing growled. When he was adventuring in that mountain with Xia Yuan, and Chao, and another expert, they encountered an extremely terrifying 1-star gold-armored ancient god. Out of the 4 of them, he was the only one lucky enough to run away. During then, he had witnessed how that ancient god killed Xia Yuan. Before Jian Wushuang transformed, he did not think of him that way. But now that he had transformed into an ancient god, Kong Jing recognized him immediately. He was certain that Jian Wushuang was that gold-armored ancient god he had met in the Tianqi Mountains. His companions were shocked. "You're saying that Xia Yuan was killed by Jian Wushuang? But it's impossible, wasn't he killed by a demon god?" It's him. A purple-haired lady shouted in fear from the Immortal Dynasty camp. Back then, Jian Wushuang had just reached the Tianqi Mountains. His first fight was against the 3 from Immortal Dynasty. In the end, Jian Wushuang killed 2 of them. This lady was the one that got away. Now, she recognized Jian Wushuang as well. Gradually, the survivors who had encountered Jian Wushuang during the 10 days in the Tianqi Mountains all recognized him. 2 majestic figures were standing far apart from each other on the ground, facing each other. Though the silver-armored ancient god that Yun Fan transformed into was big, it looked tiny in front of the one that Jian Wushuang transformed into. Yun Fan stared at Jian Wushuang with a gloomy gaze. He spoke with an icy voice, "So you're the gold-armored demon god who stopped me last time. No wonder you attacked me instead of the experts from ancient sect." "Yes, it was me." Jian Wushuang admitted to it generously. "Hee, you told us that you were hiding in the Eternal Zone for 100 years. Now it seems like it was a complete joke." Yun Fan sneered and continued. If what you said was true, how did you get the chance to become a gold-armored demon god? Everyone looked at Jian Wushuang, waiting for his reply. They were not convinced by what he said before. After seeing Jian Wushuang transform into a demon god, they were even more certain that Jian Wushuang was hiding big secrets. It's the gold-armored demon god. A number of those in the crowd were eyeing on it. All the experts in the firmament territory had the same desire. It could be a big platform for their strength to increase tremendously. However, after so many years, only a few of them had transformed into demon gods. Furthermore, almost all of them only became copper-armored demon gods. Yun Fan had the best luck, yet he only transformed into a silver-armored demon god. But now, standing in front of them, someone had transformed into a gold-armored demon god. How could they not be agitated? Under watchful eyes, Jian Wushuang's expression did not change. He cast Yun Fan a cold gaze and spoke in a low voice, "You talked too much nonsense. I've told you that as long as you defeat me, I'll follow you to your sect. I'll then tell you everything that you want to know." "Very good, I'll show you no mercy then." Yun Fan continued, "I underestimated you just now and let you get an upper hand. But now, things are different. Let me see how much your strength had increased after staying in the Eternal Zone for 100 years, you peerless genius from the ancient sect." Yun Fan continued standing at the same spot. The jet-black long staff expanded in size while radiating a powerful aura. The onlookers all nodded at Yun Fan's words. They could all see that Yun Fan lost an upper hand because he had not taken Jian Wushuang seriously in the fight just now. Although Jian Wushuang had the ultimate advantage, Yun Fan obviously took him too lightly, despite Jian Wushuang throwing him against the ground twice. But now Yun Fan was obviously going to go all out. I also would like to know just how strong is the Great Elder of the Cloud Sea Asgard, the expert from Eternal Realm whose powers are officially known in the firmament territory to second my masters. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. While he was speaking, the Emperor's sword in his hand had been elongated to 10 meters long and sword essences flew in all directions. A dark golden light was glistening in his eyes. His battle intent was shooting high up into the sky. Currently, Jian Wushuang's blood was already boiling. An angry voice kept echoing at the back of his mind. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" His battle intent was surging and his sword essence was overwhelming. As if feeling Jian Wushuang's inner turmoil, the nearby onlookers all held their breath. Everyone was in full concentration as they waited. The vast heaven and earth were in dead silence at this moment. It was so quiet that even the sound of a needle dropping could be heard. Whoosh, a light wind blew past the void. However, this small sound sounded like the sudden beat on the war drum. At that very moment, the two figures that were far apart on the vast ground both made a move at the same time. Chapter 769, A Fierce Battle. Chapter 769, A Fierce Battle. Boom! Jian Wushuang was a total of 15 meters tall. He stomped hard on the ground as a bright light shone from his eyes. The cracked ground crumbled apart under his feet. Ashes and crushed stones were splattered everywhere. Jian Wushuang started running forward, his huge feet treading on the ground heavily. He held onto the Emperor's sword tightly in his right hand, and though it did not strike out, the sword essence it radiated disturbed the air ruthlessly. Yun Fan charged out as well. He had a grave expression on his face. A vast spiritual power kept flowing from his body to his right hand. The two approached each other at an alarming speed. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 100 meters, 10 meters, and they finally met. Jian Wushuang held up the Emperor's sword with both his hands. It had already grown to 10 meters long. He concentrated all of his power in his arms. Meanwhile, the sword heart in his sea of consciousness shook wildly and reached the peak of its power. All those powers finally streamed into his long sword. When the sword could bear no more power, Jian Wushuang struck forward, the gaze in his eyes stronger than ever. The first move of Boundless Heaven Sword Art, Annihilation Sword Move. Bang! The sword shadow of Jian Wushuang's merciless move was seen striking out as the ground under his feet started to crack. When the sword shadow struck out, a groan seemed to ring in the air, as if the place was shivering under the shocking power. It was a sword meant to destroy. It was the first move of the Boundless Heaven Sword art, the Annihilation Sword move. The Boundless Heaven Sword art was a secret skill created by Xian Yi. It was a high-level sword principal's secret skill. The first move was already even more powerful than Netherworld, Twilight, and other skills that Jian Wushuang created. When Jian Wushuang started his attack, Yun Fan's facial expression showed that he was struggling. Four Beast's secret skill, Green Dragon Staff. He let out a low growl and raised the jet-black long staff in his hand. The staff instantly expanded once again. It looked as if a majestic giant mountain suddenly appeared in the void and there seemed to be a powerful green dragon circling around it. As if it came from another world, the giant mountain broke through the heaven and earth, ferociously smashing everything in its way. Back in the Tianqi Mountains, Jian Wushuang once had an official fight with Yun Fan. During that time, he just wanted to cover Palace Master Destruction and others in their evacuation, so he had not made it a life-and-death battle, and neither did Yun Fan. But now, it was different. Both wanted to fight until one of them dies. For this kind of fierce battle, they had to go all out. The first move they made was their best move. The crowd watched as the all-destroying sword shadow collided into the giant mountain with green dragons circling it. They hit hard. It was a face-to-face battle. Bump! The huge sound staggered the place. The onlookers all let out a cry of pain. They felt like their ears were just pierced through by the loud sound. The loud bang was accompanied by an outburst of earth-shaking power. The void quivered, a large amount of energy started radiating towards the surrounding like sharp arrows. Bang! 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 Those arrows rained on the surroundings or the ground, and each of them created a hole where it landed. Instantly, the area was left riddled. But at this moment, in the center of the battlefield, Jian Wushuang and Yun Fan were seen being blown away at the same time. They were knocked out by the shock, which seemingly turned them into shooting stars. Gleaming in silver light, Yun Fan's 5-meter figure was smashed against a hill. Bang! The majestic hill instantly crumbled down before disappearing off the surface of the earth. However, it did not stop Yun Fan from falling backward. He then smashed into another hill. Boom! 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 After 5 consecutive exploding sounds, Yun Fan finally regained his balance before he was about to knock into the 6th hills. On the other side, Jian Wushuang's situation was no better than Yun Fan's. A thick forest was behind him and there were no hills. While he was sent flying, he knocked down many tall trees, but that did not seem to stop him. Eventually, he thrust his sword deep into the ground and finally stopped 100 meters later. The moment he regained his balance, he turned into a streak of gold light instantly and rushed forward. Yun Fan did the same. The onlookers did not even have time to react before another booming sound echoed. Jian Wushuang and Yun Fan exchanged a move again and exploded the space around them. Jian Wushuang had a cold expression as he stared at Yun Fan deadly. His sword struck out like a serpent targeting its prey, making no sound. Phew! 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 He launched 3 fast attacks consecutively, and each of them aimed at Yun Fan's throat. Yun Fan, on the other hand, held onto his staff tightly. He swung it and managed to defend himself against Jian Wushuang's moves. Both of them staggered backward at the same time. Yun Fan then suddenly raised his head and opened his mouth. Roar! The growl echoed loudly throughout the heaven and earth. The growl was accompanied by a powerful sound wave attack. It went towards Jian Wushuang immediately. Jian Wushuang was too close to Yun Fan. He could not dodge the sudden attack. Oh no! Jian Wushuang's expression changed, and he immediately set up an energy shield inside his body with his spiritual power. Sound wave attack aimed at the inside of a body. Yun Fan was able to display such a skill due to his intensive study in a remarkable secret skill. The sudden sound wave broke through all layers of Jian Wushuang's shield before striking him heavily like a hammer. Umph! He let out a groan of pain and spit out a trace of fresh blood. Luckily, his body was extremely strong, and his immortality secret skill had improved tremendously during his years in the Eternal Zone. He had completed mastering blood condensation technique, Chapter 2 of the Immortality Secret Skill. As for Chapter 3, the armor technique, he was already at Stage 2 of cultivation. Therefore, his body was stronger than many Eternal Realm experts. Besides, he was a gold-armored ancient god, and they were the most proficient in strength and defense. Although Yun Fan's sound wave attack caused him some injuries, it did not affect his battle strength that much. Chapter 770, The Best Move. Chapter 770, The Best Move. Jian Wushuang barely managed to withstand Yun Fan's sound wave attack using his own body. But at the same time, Yun Fan swung his long staff and hurled it at Jian Wushuang. Secret skill, Heaven Anthem. Buzz, a miserable voice started echoing throughout the place all of a sudden. It sounded like music of lament. While the music sounded, a towering stone staff furiously streaked across the sky along a straight route. Jian Wushuang used his whole body and mind to block off the sound wave attack. He had just regained his composure when he was just about to get struck by the staff. He had no time to defend himself with his sword, let alone time to dodge. Secret skill, mind-controlling secret skill. A strange power surged suddenly and covered Yun Fan. This strange power was felt like a sharp stinger stabbing him inside his head. What? Yun Fan felt a sharp pain. Although he could hold it in, it had slowed his movements. Jian Wushuang took advantage of the situation and went to the other side. At the same time, he struck out his emperor's sword mercilessly. Get lost! He shouted. Funny. Yun Fan sneered. He moved his wrist and held up his staff swiftly to meet Jian Wushuang's sword. Yun Fan had just managed to block the attack before Jian Wushuang started to unleash his swordsmanship. Boom! Boom! The two were soon in an intense battle. At first, they fought on the ground, leaving the land and the forest in ruins. Later, they moved their battlefield to the void, causing the sky to tremble and shake. A limitless amount of energy was thrown about in the sky, forming a wild wind. Following which, they came back to the ground again. It was a fierce battle. It was a battle like none before. The onlookers had retreated to another place to stay away from the two fighters since long ago. Many of the experts in the crowd, including the disciples who were only at the Divine Realm expert level, all had a dull look as they watched the fight. It was so amazing. It was definitely the most intense, crazy, and fierce fight they had ever seen. The two showcased an array of tricks. After such a long fight, there was still no winner. Most importantly, one of them, Yu Fan, was an Eternal Realm expert ranked second in Firmament territory and had the fourth step of battle strength. And the other was just a Divine Realm expert. The astonishment was especially so among the disciples in the crowd. Is Jian Wushuang really just a Divine Realm expert? I never thought that a Divine Realm expert can be so powerful. I heard that even the most powerful Divine Realm expert could only be a match only for the weakest Eternal Realm expert, but now, it seems, with his current power, although he is just a Divine Realm expert, Jian Wushuang could kill an ordinary Eternal Realm expert like he was killing a goose. They were all Divine Realm experts, but the power demonstrated by Jian Wushuang was beyond those disciples' imaginations. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never believe it. On the battlefield, the two finally widened the gap between them again. Yun Fan was standing still in the void. His gaze showed that he no longer took his opponent lightly. Instead, there was a serious look that was not there before. This boy. I've tried my best, but I still cannot gain a bit of upper hand. How could he be as powerful as me when he is just a Divine Realm expert? Yun Fan was astonished. If someone had told him before this that there was a Divine Realm expert who as powerful as him, he would laugh and even disdain the person. However, now he knew that it was indeed possible. Jian Wushuang's ability was nowhere weaker than his. Not only is he not weaker than me, but he also has plenty of spiritual power. Yun Fan narrowed his eyes. His battle with Jian Wushuang was so crazy, he used every single trick that he knew. That would definitely be a toll on spiritual power. For an expert of eternal realm like him, his spiritual power was already depleted by more than 30%. Jian Wushuang was just a divine realm expert. He should have exhausted all his spiritual power after such an intense fight. But in reality, he was still at the peak of his condition. Although I do not know why he has so much spiritual power, it is very obvious that I cannot win him by suppressing him with mine. Since that's the case, I can only do this. Yun Fan's face darkened and he lifted up his head. Jian Wushuang, you are really something else. You're just a divine realm expert, but you're the most powerful one I've ever heard. Prepare to take my best move then. As he spoke, a fiery red energy kept surged out of Yun Fan's body. Your best move? Jian Wushuang looked indifferent and had a faint shine in his eyes. I am looking forward. The best move. Upon hearing Yun Fan's words, the onlookers all turned towards Yun Fan. They were looking forward to it as well. I've never displayed this move in front of others ever since I became the great elder of our sect. Boy, you should feel proud for making me do this. Also, don't worry. In the end, I will control my power and not kill you. Yun Fan's voice echoed again, full of confidence. He raised his staff high up above him. A large amount of fiery red energy surged wildly while it covered the whole void, as if it was a fire in the sky spreading gradually. Jian Wushuang felt scorching hot, as if he was in a sea of fire. Yun Fan was standing in the center of the fire, as if he was the king of fire. With a wave of his hand, the fire disappeared, leaving behind a red staff shadow that was protruding out. Four Beast's secret skill, Burning Dragon. Yun Fan snarled. Roar! A loud roar echoed throughout the place. Jian Wushuang widened his eyes only to see a burning dragon coming straight at him. A giant burning dragon appeared where the staff shadow pointed to. The dragon was about 10,000 feet long and was covered in fire. It seemed to be able to destroy everything. It growled lowly as it neared Jian Wushuang in raging fires. The onlookers could not help but to tremble with fear at the scene. This move is so formidable. A few Eternal Realm experts started murmuring. Many experts present shared his feeling. Chapter 771 Yun Fan Lost? Chapter 771 Yun Fan Lost. This is your strongest move. While the other spectators were shocked by the strike, Jian Wushuang still wore a frosty expression. The power is indeed not bad, but it's a pity that it will not be enough. A cold voice came out of Jian Wushuang's mouth. It sounded unquestionable and echoed in heaven and earth. After he finished speaking, he immediately raised up his Emperor Sword. His spiritual power was at full blast and Jian Wushuang activated 10% of it. The second move of Boundless Heaven Sword Art, Demon-Slaying Sword Move. Dark golden light was glistening in his eyes. As a gold-armored ancient god, he had activated all of his ancient god strength. Boundless Heaven Sword Art was comprised of 7 moves and each move was stronger than the previous one. The first move, Annihilation Sword Move, was very powerful, but it was far inferior to the second move. The first and second moves were 2 whole different levels. Before entering the Eternal Zone, Jian Wushuang could barely display the first move, Annihilation Sword Move. But he had stayed in the Eternal Zone for a whole 100 years. 100 years was immensely long to him. His swordsmanship was already not like before. He had mastered the second move of Boundless Heaven Sword Art long ago. A mighty huge crescent-shaped sword shadow lashed out and quickly collided into the burning dragon. The overwhelming power collision caused continuous loud sounds. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. He stared at Yun Fan and spoke in a flat, toneless voice. Great Elder of Cloud Sea Asgard is just as Jian Wushuang's voice may be calm, but all the more it attracted people's attention in such a fierce battle. All the onlookers, including Yun Fan, all heard his words. Everyone was stunned. Great Elder of Cloud Sea Asgard is just so. How arrogant. However, what happened next made them all shut up. The crescent-shaped sword shadow actually became even more terrifying. The burning dragon started to fall. The sword shadow breezed by and split the 10,000 feet long burning dragon into two from its middle. It did not lower its speed. Instead, it landed violently on Yun Fan. Pfft. Yun Fan spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, which spattered on the ground. All the spectators were dumbfounded by the scene. Lost? Yun Fan actually lost the fight. He was defeated by Jian Wushuang, a divine realm expert. Am I dreaming? All of them could not believe what they saw. After all, Yun Fan was ranked second among the Eternal Realm experts in the Firmament territory. It was known that Xian Yi was the only one that was able to defeat him. But now, another one could do the same, and he was only a Divine Realm expert. He won. The 9 palace masters from the ancient sect were over the moon. They had never thought that Jian Wushang could defeat Yun Fan. Even him earning the chance to fight with Yun Fan was shocking enough. But now, Jian Wushuang actually won the fight. There was once a most heaven-defying divine realm expert in the Firmament territory, but he was only capable of killing ordinary experts at step 1 of the Eternal Realm. Therefore, Jian Wushuang set a record as he had defeated an expert at step 4 of the Eternal Realm. The strongest divine realm expert. He is definitely the strongest divine realm expert in our history. The other experts acclaimed in a low voice. The whole void was in chaos never seen before. On the battlefield, Yun Fan regained his balance and stood up. His lips and body were stained with blood and his aura became immensely weak. Obviously, he was seriously injured. He clenched his fists and glared at his opponent deadly. I lost? A divine realm expert defeated me? How is this possible? How did I lose? He snarled in his heart, his eyes full of grievances. But no matter how he felt, he had lost the fight. He could not find an excuse when there were so many people looking. At this moment, Jian Wushuang landed his gaze on him. Yun Fan, Jian Wushuang said plainly in a cold voice, "Now, do you still want me to visit your Cloud Sea Asgard?" Yun Fan's expression darkened and his face tingled with embarrassment under everyone's scornful gaze. He was simmering with rage. But he quickly tamed his anger and looked at Jian Wushuang with a grim smile. "Jian Wushuang, you thought that once you defeated me, then we're done. Ridiculous. You've come back alive after staying in the Eternal Zone for 100 years. There's no doubt that you have a big secret. The Cloud Sea Asgard is very desperate about finding out the secret, and that is a fact. But did you think that we're the only ones after it?" There was a tiny change in Jian Wushuang's expression. "Saber Master, old weirdo dream, you guys have been hiding for so long. It's time to show up." Yun Fan suddenly growled. After which, 2 figures appeared from a near distance and started dashing over towards them. At the same time, their voices echoed throughout the entire area one after another. "Hi Yun Fan, I've known you for almost 10,000 years. It's my first time seeing you suffer terribly in a fight. Defeated by a Divine Realm Junior, you don't deserve your name as Great Elder." The 2 were obviously sneering at him. The 2 figures quickly came into sight. One of them had black short hair, bushy whiskers, and sword-shaped eyebrows. He carried a saber on his back. Standing there with a frosty look, he was like a peerless, fierce beast. The other was a skinny old lady, whose eyes were extremely cold. Upon seeing the 2, the other experts from all sects were greatly taken aback. Chapter 772 Join Hands. Chapter 772 Join Hands. These 2. Saber Master? One of the 2 masters from the Immortal Dynasty? Old weirdo dream from the Boundless Demon sect. Gosh, This old monster has disappeared for tens of thousands of years. She is still in the firmament territory? The other experts were familiar with the two newcomers. Both Saber Master and Old Weirdo Dream were very famous in the firmament territory. Saber Master was also called Slaughter Master, and he was second to their sect master. Although he was unable to transform into a demon god, he had reached the peak of level 3 of Saber Heart in the Saber Principle. Aided by various skills, his battle strength was at step 4 of the Eternal Realm. Old Weirdo Dream was a complete monster. No one knew how many years she had lived. With an incalculable number of skills, she was more terrifying than Saber Master. You actually lost to a little Divine Realm expert. Yun Fan, your reputation is destroyed by the boy. Saber Master sneered. Humph, if you're powerful, then go fight him. I really want to know how you will defeat him, Yun Fan growled with a pale look. Saber Master raised his eyebrows and could not help but spare the boy a glance with a flicker of gravity. Jian Wushuang possessed a big secret which was appealing to the three magnates. The two famous experts had received the news from their people, so they had immediately set off and arrived early to watch the fierce fight. Both of them watched most of their fight and learnt about Jian Wushuang's strength. Saber Master only verbally mocked Yun Fan, as he knew he would probably lose the fight with Jian Wushuang. Okay, stop all these nonsense. This boy is extremely powerful. If we go for 1-to-1, none of us can match him, so let's join hands to fight him, Old Weirdo Dream suggested. Join hands? Saber Master's expression changed. He said, that's not a problem, but what shall we do if we catch him? Old Weirdo Dream replied, let's talk about it after we get him. As for his secret, we'll work out a compromise. If not, we can share it. Yun Fan nodded. Agree. Okay. Saber Master also agreed with it. After a while, the supreme experts at Step 4 of the Eternal Realm had reached an agreement. They had not lowered their voice, so everyone was able to hear their plan. Join hands? Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream all join hands to deal with a Divine Realm expert. Humph, Jian Wushuang already defeated Yun Fan, who is a bit stronger than the other two experts, so how will they get the better of him if they don't work together? The experts started murmuring among themselves. The 9 palace masters in the ancient sect camp heard their conversation and were incandescent with rage. Bastard, the 3 monsters are already of such age. They're actually joining hands to attack a Divine Realm Junior. How shameful! Vice Palace Master Ling Yu shouted. The other palace masters were furious too, and were about to help Jian Wushuang. However, Palace Master Destruction blocked them. He said in a low voice, I've sent a message to Palace Master Xin. He ordered us not to meddle in this. What? The other palace masters were shocked. Not meddle in this? Shall we just watch the 3 old monsters bully Jian Wushuang? Palace Master Mo Tao shouted. Palace Master Destruction replied, I'm not certain, but you all know Xian Yi's patience. Since he ordered so, he must have his own plan. We can only obey it. Upon hearing this, the other palace master had to restrain themselves from helping this boy, despite them being furious. On the battleground, Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream had already come to a consensus. They stood side by side in front of Jian Wushuang while locking their gaze on him. Join hands? Seeing what was happening, Jian Wushuang still wore a cold expression. He knew deep down that once he started to attack, he would not be dealing with just the Cloud Sea Asgard, there would be the other opponents waiting for him. Hence, he was not surprised. So what? Jian Wushuang shot out a cold gaze. His sword essence did not become weaker. Instead, it became even more terrifying, as if it was going to ruin everything. Nothing could stop him. Fight! With a stern growl, Jian Wushuang's big figure charged forward again. He knows that he's fighting against 3, but he's still not backing out. Instead, he is taking the initiative to start attacking. He's so bold. Saber Master saw the boy rushing towards him. A hint of excitement shone across his eyes. Let me see how powerful you are. As he spoke, he took a step forward. It was just one step, but he instantly glided across a distance of 1,000 feet and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, after which he raised his saber. Saber Master was famous for his saber technique. He was obsessed with his saber and also had ultimate confidence. As he brandished his weapon, a saber shadow which was huge enough to cover half of the sky suddenly appeared. It slashed at the boy without mercy, like a hurricane. The terrifying power shook the heaven and earth. There was a faint dark golden light glistening in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Just when Saber Master swung his saber, Jian Wushuang also swung his emperor sword without holding back. It was a clean sweep. This strike looked like it could sweep across the whole sky. It instantly collided into the huge saber shadow. Shwa! The terrifying power from the collision cut the air open and seemed to cause cracks in the void. However, this collision only lasted for a while before the saber shadow was shattered into pieces. Jian Wushuang's sword shadow, however, violently flashed across the sky and hit on a mountain at the back. Swish! It ruthlessly cleft the mountain and cut it into two parts. This boy's strength is brilliant. Saber Master marveled at it. He is a gold-armored demon god. It's no surprise that he has a superb strength. Old Weirdo Dream glanced at Saber Master and then darted forward. Watch my move. Chapter 773, 1 verses 3. Chapter 773, 1 verses 3. The moment the skinny old Weirdo Dream dived forward, a sharp aquamarine longsword appeared in her hands. She burst into shrill laughter. A bizarre light flashed across her eyes, and in the next moment, dozens of figures appeared. What is this? Illusionary body. What an odd secret skill. The spectators could not hold back their shock. One person had just turned into dozens of old Weirdo Dream in an instant. They had the same aura. All of them were holding onto an aquamarine longsword and headed towards Jian Wushuang. It was hard to distinguish her original body from them. Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised. This led him to think of the secret skill that Wu Dao had displayed. At that time, in order to escape, Wu Dao changed into 18 figures and ran in different directions. However, Wu Dao's secret skill was meant to create doppelgangers that could confuse opponents while escaping. The secret skill that old Weirdo Dream displayed, however, to create illusions to confuse her opponents for attack purposes. Dozens of identical figures appeared out of nowhere and came towards Jian Wushuang. Ancient God's secret skill, Scarlet Eye. Jian Wushuang growled. Then the scarlet mark between his eyebrows opened slightly. An eerie-looking, vertical blood-red pupil opened suddenly. It radiated a brilliant blood light and scanned through the figures. The original body is there. Jian Wushuang instantly fixed his eyes on one of the old Weirdo Dreams and hacked at her with his long sword. Get lost. His long sword contained terrifying power and it struck the original body of old Weirdo Dream. What? Old Weirdo Dream was taken aback, as she did not expect that Jian Wushuang would be able to distinguish her original body so quickly. She immediately swung her aquamarine longsword to resist his attack. An enormous crash was heard. Old Weirdo Dream let out a muffled groan and her body moved backward immediately. This boy actually saw my original body? Old Weirdo Dream could not hide the astonishment in her heart as she was retreating. Yun Fan spoke, "This boy is too powerful. We can't tackle him one-to-one. Let's fight together." Saber Master and Old Weirdo Dream nodded in agreement. The next moment, the three experts struck at the same time. By just focusing on the size of their bodies, Yun Fan already looked small when compared to the 15-meter Jian Wushuang, let alone Saber Master and Old Weirdo Dream. The trio struck out together. Faced with the three experts, Jian Wushuang unleashed all of his swordsmanship and offensive ability. Jian Wushuang had done earnest cultivation in the underground palace of the 8th tribe for several years. Among the 3 tests there, the human level and heaven level tests were designed to test practitioners' ability to deal with the siege and melee. Therefore, he was well trained in handling situations where he was surrounded. This was beyond the expert's expectation. Even if Jian Wushuang were to battle 3 opponents whose powers match his, he would be able to grapple with them for quite some time by using just his own skills. Hence, it was easier to deal with these 3 who were weaker than him. Yun Fan used to be on a par with him, but was badly injured by Jian Wushuang, so his strength weakened greatly. 1 versus 3. Jian Wushuang still gained the upper hand. Jian Wushuang is too strong. Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream are working together, but yet they still can't beat him. What a terrifying offensive ability. His swordsmanship is also amazing. The spectators marveled at it inwardly. Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream were taken aback. His offensive skills are superb. He is so young and his offensive ability is already so strong. His strength is only a bit greater than ours, but he's able to fight against us with just his offensive ability and swordsmanship? What a real monster. Yun Fan growled, Saber Master, Old Weirdo Dream, stop wasting time on him. Let's use our trump cards. If we continue like this, Xian Yi might come here personally. When that happens, we won't have any chance to catch this boy. Okay. Saber Master and Old Weirdo Dream nodded, as they were all fearful of Xian Yi. Remember, don't kill him. Yun Fan reminded. You don't have to remind us that. Saber Master threw a contemptuous glance at Yun Fan. Then all 3 of them started to display their strongest moves. Saber Master was up first. He dashed out with a ferocious look. The veins on his face and arms stood out. He held onto sabers in both hands and took giant steps forward. A terrifying aura started to gather in his hands. Secret skill, Dragon Slayer. Saber Master shouted. The saber lashed out immediately. The sky darkened instantly and everything fell dead silent. The surrounding turned dark, and in this endless darkness, only the Saber Master's strike remained. Jian Wushuang raised his head with a hint of gravity in his eyes. He could sense that this strike was more powerful than the strongest move that Yun Fan had performed. Obviously, in terms of offensive power, Saber Master ranked first among the 3 experts. However, he was far behind Yun Fan in other aspects. Faced with the incoming blade light, Jian Wushuang was about to deflect it. But right at this moment, Old Weirdo Dream looked over at him with a bizarre light in her eyes. Secret skill, Eternal Dream. An immaterial power suddenly swept toward the boy. Jian Wushuang stood there, but he saw everything disappear in front of him. Yun Fan, Saber Master, Old Weirdo Dream, and the spectators had all disappeared. They left him alone in the vast and dark void. A voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's mind. It was magical and enticed him to fall asleep. Illusion. Jian Wushuang's expression darkened and immediately realized it was an illusion. Instantly, the scarlet mark between his eyebrows opened once again and the vertical pupil radiated a ray of blood light. The Scarlet Eye secret skill helped to see through the reality and illusion. If one were to cultivate the skill until its peak, any illusion would be useless to him. Although he had just mastered the Scarlet Eye secret skill, Jian Wushuang was able to penetrate the illusion skill Old Weirdo Dream had displayed. Chapter 774, Shameless. Chapter 774, Shameless. Buzz. The invisible power dissipated as the vast black sky immediately vanished. Jian Wushuang looked up but saw the blade light unleashed by Saber Master. Old Weirdo Dream was behind Saber Master and her face darkened as she stared at the boy in shock. He has actually broken my strongest move, Eternal Dream. How is this possible? Although it sounded impossible, Jian Wushuang made it happen. Nevertheless, it took him a while to break the illusion, which gave Yun Fan an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Seeing Jian Wushuang break out from the illusion, Yun Fan immediately opened his mouth and snarled at Jian Wushuang. This snarl created multiple sound waves, which formed a sound wave attack that was headed straight for Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had experienced the sound wave attack before, so he had already set shields inside his body in preparation for the attack. Surrounded by the sound waves, he only felt his blood racing through his veins, which caused no harm. But at this point in time, the blade light that Saber Master unleashed finally arrived. Yun Fan and Old Weirdo Dream stared deadly at the streak of blade light. Be it Old Weirdo Dream's illusion or Yun Fan's sound wave attack, they all created an opportunity for Saber Master's strongest blade light. Jian Wushuang had just disentangled himself from the illusion and sound wave attack, but the blade light was now right under his nose. It was so close that even Jian Wushuang was unable to deflect this in time. He could only protect himself by putting the Emperor Sword in front of his chest. Boom! The huge blade light with terrifying power violently crashed into the Emperor Sword. The immense force caused Jian Wushuang to fall back against the ground violently. This surge of power spread from Jian Wushuang's arm into his whole body. Humph! Jian Wushuang let out a muffled groan, and a trickle of blood oozed out of his mouth. However, his aura had not weakened. Jian Wushuang was standing quietly in his huge figure. He wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth before he looked at his opponents with a frosty look. Hee, first it's the illusion attack. Then, it's the sound wave attack. Last but not least, we have an extreme offensive power attack. Hee, the three of you cooperate well. Jian Wushuang's hearty laughter echoed the entire area. What? Yun Fan was astonished. He broke the illusion instantly, withstood the sound wave attack, and parry my attack in time? Saber Master was very astonished. All of us displayed our strongest move and worked really well together for the first time, but eventually we can't hurt him for real? Old Weirdo Dream was also petrified. They could not imagine that Jian Wushuang could manage to take in their attacks, and only suffered a minor injury. Those were their best moves. Old Weirdo Dream was the proudest of her eternal dream, as the illusion she made looked immensely real. If ordinary Eternal Realm experts fell into it, they would be unable to disentangle themselves from it within 10 breaths. This skill of hers caused others to be in awe of her. Yun Fan and Saber Master were both much stronger than her, but they were afraid of this skill of hers. She initially thought that Jian Wushuang would be stuck in the illusion for at least enough time for Yun Fan and Saber Master to give the boy a good thump, but who would have thought? Eventually, Jian Wushuang broke through the illusion in the blink of an eye. However, it was normal that Jian Wushuang was capable of warding off the sound wave attack. He had done this when Yun Fan displayed it for the first time, so it was easier for him to withstand it with some preparation. However, it was simply unbelievable that Jian Wushuang could still parry the blade light after the former 2 strikes. Saber Master frowned and asked in a low voice, "Our 3 strikes did not hurt him at all, what shall we do?" This boy is just a divine realm expert, but his strength is far beyond our expectation. The 3 of us can only suppress him at most, Yun Fan said with a gloomy look. So if we want to catch him, there is only one way. Yun Fan was deep in thoughts for a long time. He then turned towards the Cloud Sea Asgard camp suddenly and growled in a low voice, "Elders, let's join hands together to catch Jian Wushuang." Upon hearing this, Saber Master and Old Weirdo Dream were stunned. Then, both of them gritted their teeth and made up their mind. Saber Master said solemnly, "Everyone from the Immortal Dynasty, come help us to bring him down. Everyone from the Boundless Demon Sect, join us too." Old Weirdo Dream also shouted. The 3 magnates had sent numerous Eternal Realm experts here. Although many of them were killed in the Tianqi Mountains, there were still more than 20 experts left. Although their strength varied from Step 1 to Step 3, they were Eternal Realm experts after all. The other experts from the 3 magnates hesitated for a while, but they eventually started moving. More than 20 figures started darting towards Jian Wushuang at the same time. The experts from the other sects were shocked. What are they doing? Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream are known as the supreme experts in the Firmament territory. Jian Wushuang is only a divine realm expert. Just any one of them fighting him is already considered bullying, It's even ridiculous that they're working together to fight the boy. But now they actually called all the Eternal Realm experts from their sects to help them? Don't the three magnates feel ashamed? They're going too far. Many experts from the other sects cursed the three magnates. Shameless, shameless. The 9 palace masters from the ancient sect started scolding them. Cloud Sea Asgard, Immortal Dynasty and Boundless Demon Sect, you three are the three magnates in the firmament territory. But now, the supreme experts ask all of your Eternal Realm experts to attack our ancient sect's disciple who is only a divine realm expert. Shame on all of you. You have brought shame to your sect's names. Huh, the three magnates turn out to be like this? I already knew that the three magnates are shameless, but I didn't know it is to this extent. The 9 palace masters raged about it, but as Palace Master Xianyi had ordered, they did not intend to interfere in this matter, no matter how unfair it was. Chapter 775, The Third Move. Chapter 775, The Third Move. Upon hearing a torrent of scoldings, the experts from the three magnates looked embarrassed. This was especially so for the three who gave the orders. However, things have already turned out like that, they would not hesitate to carry out their plan. In order to get the big secret, they were able to set aside their reputations. Everything would give way to benefits. Their face or dignity was nothing when compared to the absolute benefits. Jian Wushuang was only handling the Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream. But now, all the experts from the three magnates were charging towards him. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang still wore an icy expression. Following which, he used his mind to cause a figure to appear by his side. It was his slaughter body. The moment he showed up, he grew at an amazing speed into a 15-meter-tall gold-armored ancient god. He held a sword in his hand and a terrifying killing intent spread out. Doppelganger? Doppelganger's secret skill? Humph, that's not a big deal. Kill his doppelganger. One of them spoke out. They indeed just witnessed Jian Wushuang's strength, so they were clear that they were unable to kill Jian Wushuang. However, they were confident of defeating the doppelganger. While the doppelganger's secret skill was an eye-opener, there were some flaws in it. Firstly, it was extremely difficult to cultivate. Only 1 or 2 from each magnate really cultivated it successfully. Secondly, it was known that the doppelganger's strength was far inferior to the original body. Sometimes, the difference could be huge. For example, an Eternal Realm expert had practiced the doppelganger's secret skill and created a doppelganger, but this doppelganger's strength might not even compare to a superior Divine Realm expert. Therefore, they would think that doppelganger was not equipped with the original body's battle strength. The experts from the three magnates thought so. However, they were wrong. Very wrong. This figure was not Jian Wushuang's doppelganger, it was another of his original body. Owing to the heavenly creation skill, he had 2 original bodies who had their own consciousness and shared many trump cards that they could use. For example, the 2 original bodies were able to change into gold-armored ancient gods. The 2 original bodies were roughly equal in strength. If they were to be compared in detail, the slaughter body and the world body were only different in the possession of an eternal weapon like the Emperor Sword. But even so, the slaughter body's battle strength was still at step 4 of the Eternal Realm. Seeing the experts rushing towards the slaughter body, Jian Wushuang threw them a frosty glance. You're courting death. He radiated overwhelming killing intents as he brandished his 10-meter long sword. Sword light was shining brightly, and he slashed the sword at his opponents. The experts from the three magnates all made their different moves to resist his attack. However, boom! The sword light relentlessly flashed by and turned into a myriad of sword shadows which violently swept through them. What? Damn it! Run! Forlorn cries were heard. All of the Eternal Realm experts lost the ground and Jian Wushuang managed to kill 4 of them. Following which, the slaughter body dived forward to continue its task. Jian Wushuang was born militant, so he would not show any mercy to the experts from the three magnates. The slaughter body held onto the sword in one hand. He launched all his battle strength from the fourth step, and aided by the mind-controlling secret skill, he slaughtered most of his opponents with ease. In just a moment, half of them were gone. Only several experts escaped narrowly. Calm was restored to the battlefield. How is this possible? The spectators watched this in shock. They had never expected that Jian Wushuang's doppelganger was as powerful as his original body. Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream were struck dumb. His doppelganger is so terrifying. It shouldn't be like this. The three supreme experts with the fourth step's battle strength widened their eyes in disbelief. At this point, Jian Wushuang's world body, who was standing in front of them, looked at the three with a cold gaze. Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream. Jian Wushuang began speaking with an easy heart. Each of you is powerful and has high status in your sect. If all of you die here, it will be a great loss for your sects, right? Upon hearing this, the three supreme experts felt a tremor in their hearts, but they immediately snickered. Jian Wushuang, you're overconfident. Kill us? Ridiculous. Yun Fan sneered. Saber Master also sighed. I admit that you're strong, but killing us with a strength like yours is simply just a dream. What a conceited boy. I've lived for so many years. It's been a long time since I met someone like you, so full of yourself. Old Weirdo Dream said in a frosty voice. You'll know soon whether I am really just full of myself. Jian Wushuang did not explain further. Truth could speak for itself. Three of you, take my move. I've just mastered this move and haven't displayed it. Today, let me test its power on you. After his exclamation, the whole area fell silent. All of them fixed their eyes on Jian Wushuang. Everyone wanted to know how powerful this move that he just mastered was and why it made him so confident. Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream also stared at him deadly. At this point, Jian Wushuang raised his emperor's sword slowly. At that instant when he lifted it up, he radiated an overwhelming and destructive sword essence. It gathered at the sword blade. Jian Wushuang paced his breathing. All the immense spiritual power and strength had completely gathered in his weapon. The initially overwhelming aura had calmed down. But it was the Emperor's sword in his hand that was unusual. Everyone present clearly sensed his sword contained a terrifying power that was gathering there. Boundless Heaven Sword Art, the third move. Jian Wushuang spoke slowly as his gaze became colder. Chapter 776, The Red Shade Sword Move. Chapter 776, The Red Shade Sword Move. The Boundless Heaven Sword Art was invented by Palace Master Xian Yi. Jian Wushuang did not know which level this secret skill belonged to. He only knew that it was powerful. The Boundless Heaven Sword Art was comprised of 7 movements, and each move was stronger than the previous one. The first move was already terrifying, but the second move was several times more terrifying than it. The third move was naturally more terrifying than the second move. Jian Wushuang had lived in the Eternal Zone for 100 years. His sword principle had made a breakthrough, so did his Boundless Heaven Sword Art. He had already mastered the third move. The third move consumed an enormous amount of spiritual power. Once Jian Wushuang displayed it, it would cost him 40% of his spiritual power. Unless necessary, he would not display it. But now, he could only turn to this move to defeat the 3 monsters. At this point, Jian Wushuang's 15-meter figure held onto its long sword. A destructive power was gathering in his hands. Sensing its terrifying power, Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream turned pale. They even felt they were facing a deadly crisis. At the same time, the power on the Emperor's sword peaked. After a blinding light shone across his eyes, Jian Wushuang swung his sword. The third move of the Boundless Heaven Sword Art. This movement was named the Red Shade Sword Move. With one swing, the heaven and earth quietened down. A vague sword shadow swept out, covering the whole sky like a wave. Upon seeing this, Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream felt their scalps tingle. Quick, let's work together to resist this attack. Yun Fan roared. Without hesitation, each of them took action at the same time. Yun Fan brandished his long staff violently to display his strongest move again. Then, a 10,000 feet long burning dragon lashed out. As he was seriously injured, the burning dragon looked obviously paler than the last time. Saber Master also unleashed the peerless blade light again. With a swing, the sky darkened completely. In this endless darkness, only the saber shadow unleashed by Saber Master was left. As for Old Weirdo Dream, she was not good at attacks. But at this moment, she also launched a brilliant sword shadow, whose power was nowhere near ordinary. The 3 strikes slashed against Jian Wushuang's huge sword shadow. However, Jian Wushuang's sword shadow was too powerful. Back then, Jian Wushuang had defeated Yun Fan by only using the second move of Boundless Heaven Sword Art. The third move was multiple times stronger than the second move. Therefore, even though Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream joined hands, they were unable to withstand it. Ping! An earth-shaking loud boom was heard. It looked as if the void had exploded. Afterward, the strong waves spread outwards. And in the center of the battlefield. Puff! 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 Yun Fan, Saber Master, and Old Weirdo Dream each spat out a mouthful of blood. Their bodies were sent flying backward, like cannonballs. Owing to the diffuse wave power, the 3 experts suffered more injuries while retreating back. Yun Fan suffered the most. He had been badly injured when fighting Jian Wushuang alone. His injuries worsened just now because of the single strike, so he was unable to withstand the wave power. Several joints in Yun Fan's body cracked at the same time, leaving many holes on his body. One of his arms was even cut off mercilessly. Saber Master and Old Weirdo Dream were also seriously wounded in the attack, although slightly better than Yun Fan. Just when they were heavily injured, Jian Wushuang immediately turned into a shadow and charged forward. His gaze was icy cold and he stared at Yun Fan deadly. He wanted to kill them all, but he wanted to kill Yun Fan the most. Furthermore, whoever suffered the greatest injuries would be easiest to kill. Jian Wushuang's first target was naturally Yun Fan. Jian Wushuang appeared in front of Yun Fan before the latter regained his balance. Jian Wushuang displayed Twilight, the fastest move of secret skills that he created. This caused a brilliant sword light to light up suddenly. Die! Jian Wushuang's killing intent was soaring, and there was a flicker of ruthlessness in his eyes. The brilliant sword light shot towards Yun Fan's head. Yun Fan was too feeble to react in time, so he was only able to watch it approach closer and closer. No! Yun Fan widened his eyes and let out a forlorn howl. The spectators' eyes were glued onto the fight. They wondered if the great elder of Cloud Sea Asgard would really die just like that. When the sword light was half a meter away from Yun Fan. Shwa! A cool breeze blew over and it seemed to have magic powers, as it sent the sword light and Jian Wushuang flying. Jian Wushuang was forced to retreat nearly 100 meters before he regained his stance. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the void ahead of him hurriedly. The other experts also raised their head to look towards that direction. They saw a figure slowly approaching at the skyline. He had his hands behind his back. The man was dressed in a white holy robe and he had 2 sword-shaped eyebrows on his handsome yet fierce-looking face. He was composed as he walked over step by step. He was bathed in sunshine and looked as if he came from another world. Everyone present could not help but stare at him. He did not say a word. All he did was to walk towards them, but yet he still gained everyone's full attention. He finally stopped by Yun Fan's side. The whole area became deadly silent. The only thing that was not calm was probably the raging emotions that everyone was hiding. Yun Fan, who just had a narrow escape, also looked at him. With a great joy in his eyes, he immediately bowed to the man. Pay my respects to Palace Master. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.